The diamond bracelet hit the marble floor with a sound that shattered Chloe Bennett's entire world. In 3 seconds, she would be called a thief. In 5, her sister would lose her only chance at survival. In 10, security would drag her out in handcuffs while the entire restaurant watched a nobody waitress get exactly what people like her deserved. But before any of that could happen, the billionaire in the corner booth stood up. If you want to see how a single moment can destroy everything, or save it, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The thing about working at Billionaire, the kind of restaurant where the napkins cost more than Chloe's rent, was that you learned to become invisible. Not metaphorically invisible. Actually invisible. The kind of invisible where wealthy people discuss their affairs, their crimes, their casual cruelties right in front of you because to them, you weren't even human. You were furniture that occasionally refilled wine glasses. Chloe Bennett had perfected this invisibility over 3 years of 12-hour shifts, aching feet, and swallowing every insult with a smile that never reached her eyes. Tonight, that invisibility was about to fail her in the worst possible way. Table 7 needs their second bottle of Chateau Margaux, Monica hissed, shoving the wine list into Chloe's hands as she rushed past. And for fuck's sake, don't screw it up. Those people tip like normal humans. Chloe nodded, already moving. She didn't bother pointing out that she'd been working table 7 all night, that she knew exactly what they wanted, that Monica was stressed because she'd spent the last 20 minutes flirting with the sommelier instead of doing her job. Pointing things out got you fired. Keeping your head down kept you employed. And employment meant her sister Emma got her medication. It meant the hospital didn't start making phone calls about overdue bills. It meant maybe, possibly, if Chloe worked enough doubles and skipped enough meals, there might be enough left over to keep the lights on in their apartment for another month. The wine was waiting at the bar. Chloe grabbed it carefully, $800 worth of liquid that probably tasted like every other wine to her untrained palate, but apparently justified the price tag because some dead French guy's great-great-grandson had stepped on the grapes personally or something. She was halfway to table 7 when she saw him. The man in booth 12. He'd been there for 2 hours, barely touching the food in front of him, his attention focused on a tablet that reflected cold blue light across sharp features that looked like they'd been carved from expensive marble. Dark hair, darker eyes, the kind of bone structure that belonged on magazine covers, except there was something wrong about it. Something too controlled. Like he was holding himself together through sheer force of will. Chloe had learned to read people. When your tips determined whether you ate that week, you got good at knowing who wanted conversation, who wanted silence, who wanted you to laugh at their jokes, who wanted you to pretend they didn't exist. This man wanted to be left alone, but he also kept glancing toward the entrance every few minutes like he was waiting for someone who would never show up. "You're staring," Monica whispered as she passed, balancing a tray of appetizers. "That's Nathaniel Pierce, as in Pierce Industries. As in worth more than this entire building. As in so far out of your league, he's practically a different species." Chloe felt her face flush. "I wasn't. Sure you weren't. Just deliver the wine and keep your fantasies to yourself. Men like that don't even see women like us." Monica disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Chloe standing there with $800 of wine and a reminder of exactly where she fit in the world's hierarchy. She approached table 7, a group of lawyers celebrating some corporate victory that had probably ruined a few thousand lives, and went through the ritual. Show the label. Wait for the nod. Pour exactly the right amount. Smile. Disappear. "Finally," one of them muttered. "Thought we'd die of thirst." Chloe's smile didn't waver. "My apologies for the wait. Is there anything else I can get you?" "Yeah, a waitress who doesn't look like she's about to cry into our food." The table laughed. Chloe laughed with them, the sound hollow in her own ears, and retreated before they could see how close to accurate that observation was. The thing was, she wasn't about to cry. She was about 3 missed paychecks past crying. Crying was a luxury for people who still believed things might get better. She was refilling water glasses at table 3 when Beatrice Sterling walked in. Chloe recognized her immediately. Everyone who worked at Billionaire knew the Sterlings. Old money, older cruelty, the kind of family that had been wealthy so long they'd forgotten what it felt like to be human. Beatrice Sterling specifically had a reputation for getting waitstaff fired for entertainment. Last month, she'd complained that her soup was too hot. The week before, too cold. The week before that, the wrong temperature entirely. which apparently existed as a separate category from hot and cold. The chef had added a note to her file. Impossible to please, impossible to refuse service, impossible woman. Tonight, Beatrice wore a dress that cost more than Emma's last hospital stay and a smile that meant someone was about to have a very bad evening. Her eyes swept the restaurant with predatory focus, looking for prey. Those eyes landed on Chloe. "Oh no," Chloe whispered. "Table 9, the hostess announced, appearing at her elbow like a harbinger of doom. "Your section. Can't Monica? Monica's slammed. You've got it." Chloe wanted to argue, wanted to explain that Beatrice Sterling was the kind of customer who found fault in perfection, who seemed to gain actual sustenance from watching people squirm, who had once made a waitress cry so hard she'd quit on the spot. But arguing meant losing this job, and losing this job meant losing Emma. So Chloe picked up a menu, straightened her shoulders, and walked into the firing line. "Good evening, Miss Sterling. Welcome back to Luminaire." Beatrice looked up slowly, her gaze traveling from Chloe's scuffed shoes to her tired eyes with the kind of assessment usually reserved for livestock. "Do I know you?" "I've served you before, ma'am." "Have you?" Not a question, a dismissal. "How utterly forgettable you must be." Chloe's smile felt like broken glass in her mouth. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Can you? I don't know. Can you? Or will you bring me something room temperature and insist it's acceptable?" "I'll bring you exactly what you order, Ms. Sterling." "Well, aren't you confident?" Beatrice's smile sharpened. "I'll have the French onion soup, and make sure it's actually hot this time. The last girl who served me seemed to think lukewarm was sufficient." "The last girl who served you got fired," Chloe thought. "Of course. Anything else?" "Not from you. Send over someone competent to take my actual order." Chloe nodded, retreated, relayed the message to the kitchen with hands that shook just slightly. The chef, a temperamental artist named Marcus who'd worked in Michelin-starred restaurants across Europe, rolled his eyes. "Sterling? Fantastic. She's going to send it back at least twice." "Make it perfect anyway?" "I always make it perfect. That's never been the problem." The soup came out exactly 7 minutes later, the cheese perfectly browned, the broth so hot it was still bubbling at the edges. Chloe carried it carefully, watching every step, praying to every deity she didn't believe in that nothing would go wrong. She was 3 steps from table 9 when Beatrice shifted in her seat. Later, Chloe would replay this moment 1,000 times, would analyze every micro-movement, every tell, would realize that Beatrice had glanced toward her, calculated the distance, and moved deliberately. But in the moment, all Chloe saw was the woman's arm jutting out directly into her path. The collision was inevitable. The tray tilted. The soup launched itself through the air in a graceful arc that seemed to happen in slow motion. And Beatrice Sterling, with reflexes that suggested this wasn't her first time orchestrating such a disaster, leaned directly into the trajectory. The soup hit her chest with a sound like judgment. Beatrice screamed. The entire restaurant went silent. "You clumsy bitch!" Beatrice surged to her feet, soup dripping down her designer dress, her face contorted with rage that was at least 60% performance. "You threw that at me!" "I didn't. You moved. Chloe heard herself stammering, watched her own hands shake, felt the weight of 300 eyes judging her guilty before she could even mount a defense. "Manager! Someone get me the manager right now!" Richard Chen appeared within seconds, his expression already apologetic before he even knew what had happened. That was his job. Apologize first. Ask questions, never. Keep the wealthy customers happy no matter what. "Miss Sterling, I am so terribly sorry." "Sorry? This incompetent fool just assaulted me with boiling soup. Look at this dress. Look at it. Do you have any idea what this cost?" "We'll cover the cleaning, of course, and your meal tonight is completely—" "I don't want a free meal, you idiot. I want her fired, and I want her arrested." The floor dropped out from under Chloe's world. "What? No, I didn't. It was an accident." "An accident? You walked straight at me and threw soup on me deliberately. Everyone saw it." "That's not what happened." "Are you calling me a liar?" Beatrice's voice rose to a pitch that suggested mortal offense. She was good at this. Very good. "First you assault me, now you're insulting me?" Richard's hand landed on Chloe's shoulder. "Chloe, go to the back. Now." "But I didn't do anything wrong." "Back office, now. Chloe stumbled backward, tears finally breaking through her carefully maintained composure, and she probably would have made it to the kitchen if Beatrice hadn't delivered the killing blow. Wait. The word cut through the chaos like a blade. Before she goes anywhere, someone needs to check her pockets. The restaurant, already silent, somehow found a deeper silence. I'm sorry? Richard said. My bracelet. The diamond bracelet I was wearing when I sat down. Beatrice held up her bare wrist. It's missing, and the only person who's been near my table is her. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Chloe's mind went blank with shock. I didn't take anything. I wouldn't. Check her pockets, Beatrice repeated. Or should I call the police and have them do it? This is insane, Chloe whispered. I'm not a thief. Richard, either you search her or I'm calling 911 right now. The manager's face had gone gray. His job was keeping rich people happy. His job was definitely not protecting a waitress, even an innocent one, from a Sterling. Chloe, he said quietly, empty your pockets. You can't be serious. Empty your pockets. The world tilted. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Chloe had worked here for 3 years. She'd been nothing but reliable, punctual, professional. She'd never stolen so much as a packet of sugar. But none of that mattered because Beatrice Sterling said she was a thief, and Beatrice Sterling's accusations carried the weight of old money and older connections. Chloe's hands were shaking so badly she could barely reach into her apron. She pulled out the contents one by one. Notepad, pen, 3 crumpled dollar bills, her tips from lunch shift, her phone with its cracked screen, no bracelet. See? There's nothing. Check the other pocket, Beatrice insisted. Chloe did. Empty except for a packet of pain medication she'd been saving for when her shift ended and her feet finally had permission to hurt. She must have hidden it somewhere, Beatrice said. Check the... That's enough. The voice came from across the restaurant. Deep. Quiet. Carrying the kind of authority that made everyone turn before they consciously decided to. Nathaniel Pierce stood up from booth 12. He'd been so still, so invisible in his corner, that Chloe had almost forgotten he was there. But now he moved with the kind of confidence that came from owning rooms just by walking into them. Mr. Pierce, Richard stammered. Sir, this doesn't concern... It concerns me when I watch someone manufacture a crime in real time. Nathaniel crossed the restaurant in measured steps. Ms. Sterling, your bracelet isn't missing. Beatrice's mask slipped for just a fraction of a second. Excuse me? You removed it yourself approximately 6 minutes ago and placed it in your purse. I watched you do it. That's absurd. Why would I... Because you're bored and cruel and you thought it would be entertaining to destroy someone's life. Nathaniel's voice never rose, didn't need to. You caused that collision deliberately, and when that wasn't enough humiliation, you decided to add theft to the accusations. How dare you? Beatrice's face flushed with genuine anger now. I am a valued customer of this establishment, and I will not be spoken to. Show them the bracelet. I don't have to show anyone anything. Nathaniel pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice. Then I'll show them this. He turned the phone around. On the screen, security footage, from an angle that shouldn't have existed because Luminaire didn't have cameras in the dining room, which meant Nathaniel Pierce had brought his own surveillance, showed Beatrice Sterling's table with perfect clarity, showed her removing her bracelet, showed her tucking it into her purse, showed her deliberately extending her arm into Chloe's path. The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't shock. This was witnessing someone's social execution in real time. You recorded me? Beatrice's voice was strangled. That's illegal. It's perfectly legal, actually. Single-party consent state. And I'm happy to share this with the police if you'd like to continue claiming theft occurred. Richard looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Ms. Sterling, perhaps we should... Don't you dare side with them. Beatrice grabbed her purse, movements jerky with rage and humiliation. This is the last time I set foot in this pathetic restaurant. You've just lost the Sterling family's business permanently. I'll survive the loss, Nathaniel said mildly. You'll what? I own this building. The restaurant leases from me. So when you say the Sterling family won't be returning, what I hear is that I won't have to listen to you abuse my staff anymore. That sounds like a win. He owned the building. Chloe's mind struggled to process this information alongside everything else that had just happened. Nathaniel Pierce owned Luminaire's building, which meant he owned dozens of buildings, which meant Beatrice made a sound somewhere between a shriek and a sob, and fled the restaurant with the kind of dramatic exit that would fuel society gossip for weeks. The remaining diners slowly returned to their meals, conversations resuming in hushed tones that would definitely be about what they'd just witnessed. Richard stood frozen, clearly trying to calculate the social and financial implications of the last 5 minutes. And Chloe just stood there, still shaking, still holding her empty pockets open, like evidence of innocence that apparently hadn't been enough. Nathaniel turned to her. Up close, his eyes were darker than she'd thought, tired, haunted by something that had nothing to do with tonight's drama. "You all right?" The question was so unexpected, so genuinely concerned, that Chloe almost laughed. "I just got accused of assault and theft in front of 300 people. I know. I asked if you're all right." Her voice cracked. "I don't know." "Richard." Nathaniel didn't look at the manager. "You're fired." Richard's face went white. "Sir, I was just trying to You were trying to protect a customer at the expense of your employee. You didn't ask questions, didn't verify facts, just assumed the woman in the expensive dress was telling the truth, and the waitress was guilty." Nathaniel's voice stayed conversational, which somehow made it worse. "You're done. Clean out your office tonight." "You can't. This isn't even your restaurant." "Bob, no, but I own the building, and your lease has a clause about maintaining appropriate business standards. Failing to protect your employees from false criminal accusations violates that clause. You're done." Richard opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came out. He turned and walked toward the back, his career ending with each step. Nathaniel looked at Chloe. "You need to sit down. You're about to pass out." "I'm fine." "You're gray. Sit." He guided her to booth 12, his booth, and she was too numb to resist. The leather was soft, expensive, the kind of seat she'd never sat in during 3 years of working here. A glass of water appeared in front of her. She didn't see Nathaniel order it, but suddenly it was there, and she was drinking it, and her hands were still shaking so badly some of it spilled. "Breathe," Nathaniel said. "Slowly. You're in shock." "I almost got arrested." "No, you didn't. She was bluffing." "She could have, if you hadn't—" Chloe couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't articulate the full nightmare of what almost happened. Criminal charges, jail, Emma losing her medication, their apartment, everything. "But I did," Nathaniel said simply. "So you're fine." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Why would you do that? You don't know me." "I know you didn't steal anything. Seemed like reason enough. People like you don't just—" "You could have stayed quiet. It was safer for you to stay quiet." Something flickered across his face. Something that looked like old pain. "Staying quiet is what cowards do. I've been a lot of things. Coward isn't one of them." They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the restaurant slowly returned to normal. Servers moved between tables, wine flowed, conversations hummed, as if nothing had happened, as if Chloe's entire world hadn't almost ended. "I need to get back to work," she said finally. "You're not working tonight. You're in shock." "I need the money." "I'll cover your wages, double. Take the night off." Chloe laughed, the sound brittle. "You already saved me and fired my manager and kicked out your tenant. You don't need to pay me, too." "It's not charity. It's logistics. You're shaking so badly you'll drop something, someone will complain, and we'll be back where we started." Nathaniel pulled out his wallet, extracted a stack of bills that was definitely more than double her nightly wages. "Go home, sleep. Come back tomorrow and we'll figure out what happens next." "What do you mean, what happens next?" "The manager is gone. The restaurant needs an interim replacement. You've worked here 3 years, you know how everything runs. You're getting a promotion." The world tilted again, but in a different direction this time. "I'm a waitress." "You were a waitress. Now you're interim manager until ownership hires someone permanent, unless you don't want the position." Chloe's mind couldn't keep up. "That's insane. You can't just promote me because you feel bad about what happened." "I'm not promoting you because I feel bad. I'm promoting you because you're the only person in this building who didn't immediately assume guilt based on social class. That suggests better judgment than most people in management positions. I don't know anything about managing a restaurant. You know everything about this restaurant. The rest you'll learn. Nathaniel stood, gathering his tablet and coat. Take the night. Think about it. Come back tomorrow with an answer. He was leaving, just like that, saving her life and changing it and walking away like it was nothing. Wait. Chloe stood too quickly, the world swimming. Who are you, really? Nathaniel Pierce, I already told you that. No, I mean, why were you recording her? Why do you have surveillance equipment in a restaurant? What? Those are good questions. Nathaniel's expression was unreadable. Maybe we'll discuss the answers when you're not about to collapse. Go home, Chloe. He knew her name. She had never told him her name. How do you... Your name tag. Go home. She wasn't wearing a name tag tonight. She'd forgotten to put it on during the shift change. But before Chloe could point this out, Nathaniel Pierce walked out of Luminaire and disappeared into the city night, leaving her standing in the ruins of her old life with a promotion she didn't understand and questions that tasted like danger. Monica appeared at her elbow. What the actual fuck just happened? I have no idea. Did Nathaniel Pierce just fire Richard and promote you? Think so. And give you a bunch of money? Chloe looked down at the bills in her hand. At least $300. Maybe more. Yeah. Chloe, that man is one of the most powerful people in the city. He doesn't just do things like that. Not without a reason. He said I didn't steal anything. Everyone could see you didn't steal anything, but most billionaires would have just watched you get arrested and gone back to their meal. So why didn't he? Chloe had no answer to that. She gathered her things from the break room in a daze, changed out of her uniform, walked out of Luminaire into the cold night air that smelled like rain and exhaust, and the particular smell of a city that never quite slept. Her phone buzzed. Emma. Hey, Chloe answered. How are you feeling? Tired, bored. The usual. Emma's voice was thinner than it used to be, weaker. How was work? Weird, really weird. Good weird or bad weird? Chloe thought about Beatrice Sterling's accusation, Richard's immediate assumption of guilt, Nathaniel Pierce's impossible intervention. I honestly don't know yet. That's cryptic. Yeah? Chloe started walking toward the bus stop. I'll tell you about it when I get home. Did you eat? Hospital food, so technically yes, spiritually no. I'll bring you something real tomorrow. You don't have to. I want to. Let me do something nice. Emma was quiet for a moment. You sound different. Different how? I don't know. Less tired? What happened at work? Everything, Chloe thought. Everything happened. I'll explain later. Get some rest, okay? She ended the call as the bus arrived, climbing aboard with the other night workers and third-shift insomniacs who populated the city's arteries after dark. Found a seat by the window. Watched the lights blur past. The money in her pocket felt heavy. The promotion felt heavier. And Nathaniel Pierce's final look, that assessment that had seen past her uniform to something underneath, felt heaviest of all. Because Monica was right. Men like that didn't help people like Chloe without a reason. The question was, what did he want? And the scarier question, why did part of her already suspect she knew? The surveillance equipment, the way he'd been watching Beatrice all night, the deliberate intervention at exactly the right moment. None of it felt coincidental. Nathaniel Pierce hadn't just been having dinner at Luminaire tonight. He'd been hunting. And somehow Chloe Bennett had just become part of whatever dangerous game he was playing. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, curiosity, the same impulse that made people slow down at car accidents, made her swipe to accept. Chloe Bennett. Not a question. She knew that voice. Mr. Pierce? Don't come to work tomorrow. Her stomach dropped. What? But you said... I said don't come to work. Come to this address instead. He rattled off a location in the financial district. 9 a.m. Don't be late. I don't understand. What? You asked who I really am. Tomorrow, I'll show you, and then we'll discuss what happens next. This is insane. I don't even know you. No, But I know you. Nathaniel's voice was quiet, certain. I know you work 3 jobs to pay for your sister's medical treatments. I know you skip meals so she doesn't have to. I know you're drowning in medical debt and afraid every single day that you'll lose her. Chloe's breath stopped in her throat. How? I know because I've been watching you for 3 weeks, Chloe. And tomorrow, I'm going to tell you why. 9 a.m. Don't be late. The call ended. Chloe sat frozen on the bus, phone pressed to her ear even though the line was dead, heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. Nathaniel Pierce had been watching her. For 3 weeks. She should be terrified. Should be calling the police, reporting a stalker, getting as far away from this situation as possible. But she wasn't doing any of those things. Because the man who'd been watching her had also just saved her life. Had fired someone who'd betrayed her. Had offered her money and opportunity and a way out of the endless cycle of poverty that had been crushing her for years. People didn't do that without a reason. And whatever Nathaniel Pierce's reason was, Chloe was going to find out tomorrow at 9 a.m. The bus lurched to her stop. She got off, walked the 3 blocks to her apartment building, climbed the 4 flights of stairs because the elevator had been broken for a month and the landlord didn't care, unlocked her door, stepped into the tiny studio that smelled like mildew and the neighbors cooking and the particular scent of desperation that came from living paycheck to paycheck. She should sleep, should process everything that happened, should think carefully about whether meeting a billionaire who admitted to stalking her was the stupidest decision she'd ever make. Instead, Chloe opened her laptop and searched for Nathaniel Pierce. The internet had a lot to say about him. Business empire worth billions. Industries ranging from real estate to tech to private security. Wife died in a car accident 4 years ago. Single father to a 6-year-old son. Notoriously private, ruthlessly effective. Connected to politicians, law enforcement, and half the power players in the city. There were photos, charity events, business conferences. Always the same expression, controlled, distant, like he was performing the role of Nathaniel Pierce rather than actually being him, except in one photo. Buried deep in a society column from 18 months ago. Nathaniel, at some gala, standing next to a man the caption identified as business partner Marcus Chen. Both of them smiling, relaxed, like they were actually friends instead of just business associates. Chloe clicked to read the full article. Got 3 paragraphs in before she reached the part that made her blood run cold. Marcus Chen, found dead last week in an apparent suicide, leaves behind questions about the financial irregularities at his company. Investigators suspect. The article devolved into speculation about embezzlement and criminal connections and the kind of scandal that destroyed families. But Chloe stopped reading there, because she'd just realized what Nathaniel Pierce had been doing at Luminaire tonight. He hadn't been there for dinner. He'd been there because Beatrice Sterling was connected to his dead business partner's scandal somehow. And if Nathaniel had been watching Chloe for 3 weeks, if he deliberately intervened tonight, if he wanted to meet tomorrow to explain everything, then whatever he needed from her was dangerous enough that he'd spent weeks preparing for this exact moment. Chloe closed the laptop, stared at her reflection in the dark screen. She should run. Should forget the promotion, forget the money, forget Nathaniel Pierce and his surveillance equipment, and his dead business partner. But Emma needed medication, needed treatments, needed someone to fight for her. And Chloe Bennett had been invisible her whole life, overlooked, underestimated, dismissed as irrelevant by everyone who mattered. Maybe that invisibility was finally worth something. Maybe the billionaire in the corner booth hadn't been watching her because he was dangerous. Maybe he'd been watching her because she was exactly what he needed. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., she'd find out which. And despite every logical part of her brain screaming that this was insane, reckless, potentially fatal, Chloe already knew she was going to show up, because sometimes the most dangerous choice was also the only choice that mattered. She set 3 alarms on her phone, laid down on her worn mattress, closed her eyes, and dreamed of diamond bracelets that weren't stolen, soup that landed exactly where it was aimed, and a man with dark eyes who watched invisible women and saw something worth saving. Chloe didn't sleep. She lay in the dark listening to the building creak and settle around her, watching the hours crawl past on her phone screen, running through every possible scenario of what tomorrow might bring. Most of them ended badly. A few ended catastrophically. None of them ended with her walking away unscathed. By the time her first alarm went off at 7, she'd been staring at the ceiling for 3 hours straight, The address Nathaniel had given her was in the financial district, which meant taking 2 buses and walking 6 blocks in shoes that were already falling apart. Chloe stood in front of her closet, if you could call 3 wire hangers and a cardboard box a closet, and tried to figure out what you wore to meet a billionaire who'd admitted to stalking you. Her work uniform was out. The jeans with the hole in the knee were worse. That left the black pants she'd bought at a thrift store 2 years ago, and a gray sweater that had seen better days, but at least didn't have any visible stains. Professional enough to not look homeless. Cheap enough to remind everyone exactly where she stood in the hierarchy. She was out the door by 8, clutching a travel mug of coffee she'd made from grounds she'd used twice already because buying fresh wasn't in the budget this week. The buses were packed with morning commuters. People in actual suits reading actual newspapers, living actual lives that didn't involve choosing between electricity and groceries. Chloe found a spot near the back and tried not to think about the fact that she was voluntarily walking into a situation that had "terrible idea" written all over it. Her phone buzzed. Emma. "You left early," her sister said by way of greeting. "Where are you going?" "Job thing. I'll explain later." "You're being weird." "I'm always weird." "Weirder than usual." Emma coughed, the sound rattling in her chest. "You okay?" "No," Chloe thought. "I'm meeting a man who's been watching me for weeks and I have no idea what he wants or why I'm stupid enough to show up." "I'm fine. Did you take your medication?" "Yes, Mom." "Emma?" "Yes, I took it. It tasted like battery acid mixed with disappointment, but I took it." Despite everything, Chloe smiled. "That's my girl. I'll come by the hospital after this meeting, okay? You don't have to." "I want to. Let me bring you real food." "If you're buying real food, something's definitely wrong." "Nothing's wrong, I just—" Chloe paused, searching for words that wouldn't worry her sister. "I might have a chance at something better, that's all." "Better how?" "I'll know after the meeting." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Be careful, Chloe." "I'm always careful." "No, you're always desperate. There's a difference." The words hit harder than they should have. "I have to go. I'll see you later." She ended the call before Emma could argue, before her sister could point out all the obvious reasons why this was a terrible idea, before Chloe had to admit that desperate was exactly what she was. The financial district looked like a different planet. Glass towers that scraped the sky, streets that were actually clean, people who walked like they owned the world because they probably did. Chloe felt every dollar she didn't have in her bank account, every meal she'd skipped, every night she'd chosen between heat and rent. The address Nathaniel gave her belonged to a building that made the others look modest. 50 stories of steel and reflective glass that threw the morning sun back at the city like a challenge. The lobby had actual artwork, not prints, actual paintings, and a security desk staffed by men who looked like they could bench press a car. Chloe approached the desk on legs that felt unsteady. "I'm here to see Nathaniel Pierce." The guard didn't even look up. "Name?" "Chloe Bennett." He checked his computer screen, then did look up, his expression shifting from bored to surprised. "Top floor, elevator on the right." "Thank you." The elevator was the kind with mirrors on every wall, forcing Chloe to confront multiple versions of herself looking terrified and out of place. She watched all of them as the numbers climbed, 20, 30, 40, until finally the doors opened onto the 50th floor. If the lobby was impressive, this was something else entirely. Floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city sprawled out like a map. Furniture that probably cost more than her car, if she'd had a car. Art that belonged in museums. And Nathaniel Pierce standing by the windows with his back to her, silhouetted against the morning light. "You came," he said without turning around. "You told me to. I've told a lot of people to do things. Not all of them listen." He turned and Chloe was struck again by how tired he looked, how controlled. Like every movement, every expression was calculated 3 steps ahead. "Coffee?" But the thing you're holding isn't coffee. It's whatever's left after you've extracted every possible molecule of caffeine from grounds you've used multiple times. I'm offering actual coffee." Chloe set her travel mug down on a side table. "Okay." Nathaniel moved to a bar area that had an espresso machine that probably cost more than her rent. He made 2 cups with the kind of efficiency that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times, no staff required, no performance necessary. He handed her one. The cup was warm in her hands, the smell rich and dark, and absolutely nothing like what she'd been drinking. "Sit," Nathaniel said, gesturing to a leather couch that faced the windows. Chloe sat. The leather sighed under her weight like it was greeting an old friend. Nathaniel took the chair across from her, not the couch. Maintaining distance, professional. Except nothing about this situation was professional. "You have questions," he said. "A few thousand, yeah." "Start with the most important one." Chloe took a sip of coffee to buy herself time. It tasted like what she imagined expensive things should taste like. Smooth, complex, completely wasted on someone who'd been drinking battery acid for months. "Why were you watching me?" "Because you're invisible." That's not an answer. It's exactly an answer. You work at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. You see everything, hear everything, and nobody notices you because you're just the help. Nathaniel leaned forward slightly. That makes you valuable. Valuable for what? For seeing things other people miss. Like what? Like Beatrice Sterling removing her bracelet before she accused you of stealing it. Chloe set her coffee down carefully. You could have stopped her before it got that far. Before she spilled the soup, before she made the accusation. You had video. You were watching. You could have intervened earlier. Yes. But you didn't. No. Why not? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, his gaze steady on hers. Because I needed to see how you'd react under pressure. I needed to know if you'd break or fight or freeze. The coffee in Chloe's stomach turned sour. You let me get humiliated as a test? I let you get challenged as an assessment. There's a difference. Not from where I was standing. I know, and I'm not apologizing for it. Nathaniel's voice didn't soften. You want honesty? Here it is. I've been looking for someone specific for 3 months, someone invisible enough to move through certain spaces unnoticed, someone smart enough to see patterns other people miss, someone desperate enough to take risks most people wouldn't. And you think that's me? I know that's you. I've watched you manage difficult customers with more grace than most diplomats. I've seen you memorize orders, preferences, subtle cues that other servers miss. I've watched you work 3 jobs, send every spare dollar to your sister's medical care, and still show up on time every single day looking like you have your life together. Chloe's hands were shaking again. You had no right to... You're right. I didn't. But I did it anyway because the alternative was walking away and letting someone else get hurt. Nathaniel stood, moved back to the windows. My business partner was murdered 18 months ago. The police called it suicide. They were wrong. The coffee felt like lead in Chloe's stomach. Marcus Chen. Nathaniel turned sharply. You looked me up. You admitted to stalking me. Yeah, I looked you up. Chloe stood too, because sitting felt like giving him too much power. Marcus Chen died 18 months ago. Apparent suicide, financial irregularities, scandal. All manufactured, all lies designed to cover up the fact that he discovered something he shouldn't have. Discovered what? That half the luxury hotels in this city are fronts for money laundering operations run by organized crime. That the Sterling family, old money, old connections, old enough to be considered untouchable, are at the center of it. Nathaniel's voice stayed level, but something flickered in his eyes. Grief, rage, both. Marcus tried to expose them. They killed him and made it look like he'd killed himself out of shame. The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. And you want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Is there? Justice means evidence, prosecution, making sure they can't hurt anyone else. Revenge is just... Nathaniel trailed off. Easier, less useful. Chloe crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. What does any of this have to do with me? The Sterlings operate through legitimate businesses, hotels, restaurants, country clubs, places where wealthy people gather and money flows and nobody asks questions because everyone involved has too much to lose by looking too closely. Places like Luminaire. Exactly like Luminaire, which is owned by Sterling Industries through 3 shell companies designed to hide the connection. Nathaniel turned fully to face her. I've spent 18 months building a case. I have financial records, transaction patterns, connections, but I don't have the final piece. Which is? Direct evidence of the operation in action. Faces, names, actual proof of who's running what. He paused. I need someone who can get inside their world, Someone they'd never suspect. Someone invisible. The implication hit Chloe like cold water. You want me to spy for you? I want you to work for me, as an intelligence asset. That's the same thing. No, spying suggests deception. I'm being completely honest about what I'm asking and why. Chloe laughed, the sound brittle. You're asking me to infiltrate organized crime. That's insane. Yes. I could get killed. Yes. Why would I possibly agree to this? Nathaniel moved to a desk, pulled out a folder, handed it to her. Open it. Chloe did. Inside were medical bills. Emma's medical bills. All of them. Marked paid in full. Her hands went numb. What did you do? I paid them. All of them. Your sister's treatments are covered for the next 3 years. The hospital has instructions to bill me directly for anything she needs. You can't. This is... Chloe couldn't find words, couldn't process what she was seeing. $50,000 in debt. Gone. Just gone. I also purchased your apartment building. Your rent is now $200 a month. Your landlord has been instructed to fix the elevator, the heating, and the hot water situation. Stop. There's a college fund set up for Emma. When she's well enough, she can go anywhere she wants, study anything she wants. Full ride. Stop. And you. Nathaniel pulled out another folder. Your salary starts at $150,000 a year. Full benefits. Housing allowance if you want to move somewhere better. Everything you need to build an actual life. Chloe dropped both folders on the desk, backed away like they were poisonous. You think you can buy me? I think I can offer you a choice you've never had before. Say no. Keep the medical payments. Keep the rent reduction. Keep the college fund. They're not conditional. I'm not holding your sister hostage. Then why give them to me at all? Because you deserve better than the life you're living. And because I'm asking you to do something dangerous, and you should be compensated appropriately. You're asking me to risk my life. Yes. For $150,000. For a chance to stop the people who killed my best friend. For a chance to make sure no one else gets hurt. For a chance to do something that actually matters, instead of just surviving day after day waiting for everything to collapse. The words hit too close to home. Chloe wanted to be angry, wanted to throw the offer back in his face, wanted to walk out with whatever dignity she had left. But Emma's medical bills were paid. Their rent was reduced to almost nothing. There was a college fund. And Nathaniel Pierce was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 18 months. What exactly would I have to do? Chloe heard herself ask. Nathaniel's expression didn't change, but something in his posture relaxed slightly. The Sterlings are hosting a private event in 2 weeks. Invitation only. Very exclusive. They'll need servers for the evening. And you want me to serve drinks while listening to their conversations. I want you to do what you already do naturally. Be invisible. Watch. Listen. Remember details. He paused. There will be technology involved. Hidden cameras, audio equipment, things that need to be placed in specific locations. You want me to bug their event. I want you to help me gather evidence that holds up in court. Chloe moved back to the window, stared out at the city spread below. From up here, everything looked clean, manageable, like you could reach out and rearrange the pieces into something better. She thought about Emma in her hospital bed, about medical bills that didn't exist anymore, about the elevator that might actually work, the heat that might actually heat, the life that might actually be livable. She thought about Marcus Chen, dead at 42, his reputation destroyed, his family left with nothing but scandal and shame. She thought about Beatrice Sterling's face when the soup hit her dress, the calculated cruelty, the casual assumption that she could destroy Chloe's life because women like Chloe didn't matter. If I say yes, Chloe said slowly, I want guarantees. Name them. Emma never finds out, no matter what happens. She doesn't know about this. Agreed. If something goes wrong, if I get caught, if they figure out what I'm doing, you get me out. Immediately. No exceptions. Already planned for. And I want to know everything. No more surprises. No more tests. If I'm risking my life, I deserve complete honesty about what I'm walking into. Nathaniel nodded. Fair. Chloe turned to face him. Why me? Really? You have money, resources, connections. You could hire professional investigators, private security, people who actually know what they're doing. Because professionals leave professional traces. They think like investigators, act like investigators, and eventually someone notices the pattern. Nathaniel's voice was quiet. But you? You've spent your entire life being overlooked. You know how to move through spaces without being seen. You know how to read people because your tips depended on it. You know how to survive hostile environments because you've been doing it for years. That doesn't make me qualified for this. It makes you perfect for this. The Sterlings are looking for threats from people they consider equals. They're not looking for threats from the help. The word help stung, even though Chloe knew he didn't mean it as an insult. How long do I have to decide? She asked. You've already decided. You're just making sure you've thought through all the angles. Nathaniel picked up a tablet from his desk. Training starts tomorrow, 6 a.m., same address. Wear comfortable clothes you can move in. I haven't said yes. Yes, you have. The moment you asked what you'd have to do instead of walking out, you said yes. He held out the tablet. This has everything you need, background on the Sterling family, details about their operation, photos of key players. Study it tonight. Memorize faces. Tomorrow we start turning you into someone they'll never suspect. Chloe took the tablet. It was heavier than it looked. Or maybe that was just the weight of what she was agreeing to. What if I'm not good enough? The question came out smaller than she intended. What if I mess up and people get hurt? Then I take the blame and you walk away clean. That's the deal. That's not how blame works. It is when I have enough lawyers to make it work that way. Nathaniel moved toward the elevator. 6 a.m., Chloe. Don't be late. The elevator doors opened, closed. Chloe was alone in the enormous office with a tablet full of secrets and a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. She looked at the screen. The first file was labeled Sterling Family Tree. She opened it. Beatrice Sterling's photo stared back at her. Beautiful. Wealthy. Absolutely certain of her place in the world. Chloe had spent her entire life being invisible to women like Beatrice. Maybe it was time to make that invisibility count for something. She gathered her things, took the elevator down, walked out into the morning sun that felt different than it had an hour ago. Brighter, sharper, like the whole world had shifted slightly off its axis. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it anyway. Chloe Bennett? A woman's voice. Professional, neutral. Yes? This is Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about Emma Bennett's account. Chloe's heart stopped. Is she okay? She's fine. I'm calling because there's been a significant change to her account status. All outstanding balances have been paid in full, and we've received authorization for ongoing treatment coverage through a private benefactor. I know. I just found out. Oh, good. I wanted to make sure there hadn't been a mistake. This is highly unusual. Yeah, Chloe said. It is. She ended the call, stood on the sidewalk while business people flowed around her like water around a stone, and tried to process the fact that her life had just changed completely in the space of 90 minutes. Emma's bills were paid. Their rent was manageable. There was a future that didn't involve drowning slowly in debt and fear. All she had to do was infiltrate a criminal organization and gather evidence against people who'd already murdered at least one person. Chloe laughed. Couldn't help it. The whole situation was so absurd, so impossible, so completely insane that laughter was the only reasonable response. A passing businessman gave her a wide berth, clearly concerned about the woman laughing to herself on the sidewalk. She didn't care. For the first time in years, Chloe Bennett had options. They were dangerous options, possibly suicidal options, but they were hers. She took the bus to the hospital, the tablet heavy in her bag, the taste of expensive coffee still on her tongue. Emma was awake when Chloe arrived, reading a book that was mostly medical jargon Chloe didn't understand. Hey, Emma said, setting it aside. How'd the meeting go? Complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now. Chloe sat in the visitor's chair she'd occupied during so many long nights. How are you feeling? Like someone who's been pumped full of chemicals designed to kill cells. So, Thursday. Emma studied her sister's face. Something happened. A lot of things happened. Good things? Chloe thought about Nathaniel's offer, the money, the danger, the chance to actually do something instead of just surviving. I think so. Maybe. I don't know yet. You're being cryptic again. I'm being careful. Emma reached over, took Chloe's hand. Her grip was weaker than it used to be. Everything about her was weaker than it used to be. Whatever it is, don't do anything stupid for my sake. I'm not. Yes, you are. You always do. You work yourself to death to pay for treatments. You skip meals so I can have hospital cafeteria garbage. You've put your entire life on hold because I got sick. Emma's eyes were bright. I appreciate it, but I don't want you destroying yourself to save me. You're not a burden, Emma. I didn't say I was. I said don't destroy yourself. There's a difference. Chloe squeezed her sister's hand. What if I told you the medical bills were paid? All of them. And your treatments are covered for the next 3 years. Emma blinked. What? I got a job offer. A good one. Really good. And the benefits include medical coverage for family members. Chloe, what kind of job offer's that? The kind that requires some risk. But the pay is worth it. Risk how? I can't explain everything yet, but I promise I'm being smart about this. Emma's expression shifted from surprise to worried. This is connected to last night, isn't it? The weird stuff that happened at work. Maybe. Chloe, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Her sister was quiet for a long moment. I trust you. I don't trust whatever situation you're walking into. Fair enough. They sat in silence for a while, Chloe holding Emma's hand, both of them watching the afternoon sun crawl across the hospital room floor. Finally, Emma spoke. Whatever you're doing, be careful. You're all I have left. You're all I have too, Chloe said. That's why I'm doing this. She stayed until visiting hours ended, then took the bus home, climbed the stairs to her apartment, locked the door behind her. The tablet sat on her table like a test. Chloe opened it, read every file, studied every photo, learned the names, the faces, the connections that turned wealthy families into criminal enterprises. By the time she finished, it was 3 a.m. and her eyes burned from screen fatigue. But she knew who Richard Sterling was, knew his wife, his mistress, his business associates, knew which hotels he owned, which politicians he funded, which cops were on his payroll. She knew Beatrice Sterling wasn't just a cruel socialite. She was the operation's primary liaison to international buyers, the charming face that made million-dollar deals over charity luncheons. She knew Marcus Chen had been killed because he'd discovered a shipment manifest that didn't match the hotel's inventory records. Such a small discrepancy. Such a fatal one. And she knew Nathaniel Pierce had spent 18 months building a case that would collapse the entire operation if he could just prove it was happening. That's where Chloe came in. Invisible. Unnoticed. Perfect. She set an alarm for 5 a.m. Lay down without bothering to change clothes. Closed her eyes and dreamed of surveillance equipment, hidden cameras, and the particular kind of danger that came from being exactly what someone needed. When the alarm went off 2 hours later, Chloe didn't hesitate. She got up, got dressed, got on the bus. Arrived at Nathaniel's building at exactly 6 a.m. The same security guard was at the desk. He nodded her through without question, like she belonged here now. The elevator took her up. Nathaniel was waiting on the 50th floor, but this time he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, late 30s, athletic build, eyes that assessed Chloe the way a surgeon assessed a patient. Chloe Bennett, Nathaniel said. Meet Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister. She's going to train you. Sarah stepped forward, hand extended. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Chloe shook her hand. Can't it be both? Oh, I like her already. Sarah grinned, the expression sharp enough to cut. Come on, let's see if you survive the first day. She led Chloe to a door Chloe hadn't noticed before, down a hallway that opened into a massive space that looked like a cross between a gym, a hotel suite, and a surveillance command center. Welcome to hell, Sarah said cheerfully. For the next 2 weeks, this is your entire world. We're going to teach you how to move, how to watch, how to survive situations most people don't walk away from. And if I can't learn fast enough, then you die. Sarah's smile didn't waver. But don't worry, we're very good teachers. And Nathaniel says you're a fast learner. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway. She is. She'll be ready. You have a lot of faith in someone you've known for 2 days, Chloe said. I have faith in desperation. It's a better motivator than money. He wasn't wrong. Sarah clapped her hands once. All right, lesson 1. How to be invisible in plain sight. You already know the basics. Now we're going to make you a professional. For the next 6 hours, Chloe learned things she'd never imagined needing to know. How to walk through a room and have nobody remember seeing you. How to position yourself to hear conversations without appearing to listen. How to memorize faces, names, details in the 3 seconds you had while pouring wine. How to place a surveillance device in under 5 seconds without breaking stride. By noon, she was exhausted. By 3 p.m., she was ready to quit. By 6 p.m., she'd placed a bug in a mock hotel room while Sarah timed her and found it in 4 seconds flat. Better, Sarah said. Again. I can't. Again. Chloe did it again and again and again until her hands moved automatically, until the motion was muscle memory, until she could do it in 3 seconds without thinking. Good, Sarah finally said. Tomorrow we work on not looking terrified when someone notices you. I wasn't terrified. You were. Your breathing changed, your pupils dilated, and you shifted your weight like you were getting ready to run. In a real operation, that tells everyone exactly what you're doing. So how do I fix it? Practice. Lots of it. Sarah tossed her a water bottle. Go home, sleep. Be back here at 6 tomorrow. And Chloe? Yeah? Don't think too hard about what you're learning to do. It'll just make you freeze up when it matters. Chloe took the bus home, every muscle aching, her mind buzzing with information she couldn't turn off. Emma called. Chloe let it go to voicemail. She'd call back tomorrow when she had energy to lie convincingly about where she'd been all day. She collapsed into bed fully clothed again, dreamed of placing bugs in penthouse suites while Beatrice Sterling watched with dead eyes. Woke up to her alarm at 5 a.m. Did it all over again. The days blurred together. Training became routine, became second nature. Chloe learned to control her breathing, her expressions, her instinctive fear response. Learned to move through spaces like she belonged there. Learned to plant surveillance devices in bathroom mirrors, under tables, inside decorative objects. Learned that Nathaniel Pierce watched every training session from a control room, analyzing her performance, identifying weaknesses, pushing Sarah to push Chloe harder. On day 8, Sarah brought in actors to play wealthy guests at a party. Don't just place the devices, she instructed. Gather information, read the room, tell me who's sleeping with who's nervous, who's lying. Chloe moved through the mock party like a ghost, refilled glasses, cleared plates, listened. Afterward, she recited everything she'd heard. Sarah checked her notes. 90% accurate. The couple by the window weren't having an affair. They were business partners discussing a merger. They held hands under the table. They're also first cousins. Different kind of inappropriate, same gesture. That's disturbing. Rich people are disturbing. Get used to it. Sarah made another note. But good catch. You're learning to see patterns. On day 12, Nathaniel finally joined a training session. He walked into the mock suite while Chloe was placing a device in a lamp. Someone's watching you, he said quietly. What do you do? Chloe's first instinct was to freeze. Her second was to run. She did neither. Instead, she continued adjusting the lamp like she was just making sure it sat properly on the table, then turned with the same neutral expression she'd perfected over 3 years at Luminaire. Is the lighting not right, sir? Nathaniel's expression didn't change. It's fine, carry on. He left. Sarah appeared from her observation post. Perfect, exactly perfect. You didn't panic, didn't break character, gave yourself a plausible reason to be touching the lamp. I almost ran. But you didn't. That's what matters. That night, Nathaniel called Chloe into his office. 2 more days, he said. Then you're going in. I'm ready? You're as ready as you're going to be in 2 weeks. Perfect would take 6 months. We don't have 6 months. What changed? Richard Sterling moved up his event timeline. He's hosting the gathering tomorrow night instead of next week. Chloe's stomach dropped. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. Which means your first operation is in 36 hours. Nathaniel handed her a file. Everything you need is in here. Memorize it. Burn it. Tomorrow morning, we'll do a final walkthrough. Chloe took the file with hands that wanted to shake but didn't. And if something goes wrong? Sarah will be on site as backup. I'll be monitoring from a remote location. You'll have an earpiece with a direct line to both of us. And if things go completely sideways, we extract you immediately. You make it sound simple. It's not. But you can do it. Nathaniel paused. Marcus would have liked you. He always respected people who didn't quit. It was the first personal thing Nathaniel had said since this whole thing started. I'm sorry he's dead, Chloe said. So am I. That's why we're doing this. She left with the file, went home, read every page until she had it memorized. Then she burned it in her kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken and turn to ash. Tomorrow night, she'd walk into Richard Sterling's penthouse. Tomorrow night, she'd become someone she'd never been before. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Chloe looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Same face, same tired eyes. But something was different now. She'd spent her whole life being invisible. Now she was going to weaponize it. The morning of the operation, Chloe threw up twice before she even left her apartment. Sarah had warned her this would happen. Your body knows you're walking into danger, she'd said during one of their training sessions. Let it purge, then get your shit together and do the job anyway. So Chloe purged, got her shit together, and showed up at Nathaniel's building at exactly 6 a.m. like she'd been doing for the past 2 weeks. The 50th floor looked different today. Less like an office, more like a command center. Monitors covered one wall, showing security feeds from what Chloe recognized as the Sterling Hotel's exterior. Sarah sat at a console running equipment checks, her movements efficient and practiced. Nathaniel stood by the windows, phone pressed to his ear, his expression darker than usual. I don't care what the weather report says, he was saying. I need those satellite feeds operational by 1800 hours or we abort. He paused. No, not good enough. Fix it. He ended the call, turned to find Chloe watching him. Problem? She asked. Storm system moving in faster than predicted. Might interfere with communications. He checked his watch. But we're committed now. The event starts at 8 p.m. You need to be in position by 7:30. Chloe's stomach lurched again. She swallowed it down. What's my cover story again? Last-minute replacement server. The agency sent you because their regular girl called in sick. Sarah spoke without looking up from her console. You've worked high-end events before, but never for the Sterling specifically. You're grateful for the opportunity. You need the money. You're invisible. I'm invisible, Chloe repeated, the mantra they'd drilled into her for 2 weeks. Good. Now come here and let me wire you up. The surveillance equipment was smaller than Chloe expected. The earpiece looked like a hearing aid, flesh-colored and nearly invisible once Sarah positioned it properly. The pendant camera was built into a simple silver necklace that looked like something a waitress might wear to feel slightly dressed up. Audio check, Sarah said. Chloe counted to 10, watched Sarah's screen show the waveform of her voice. Perfect. Now the backup. Sarah handed her what looked like an ordinary pen. If the primary camera fails, use this. Click it twice to start recording, 3 times to stop. Don't click it once or you'll just write on things like a normal pen and feel stupid. Got it. And this? Sarah held up a compact that looked like cheap drugstore makeup. The mirror is actually a signal jammer. If you need to disable their security for 30 seconds, open it and press the powder. It'll fry everything electronic within a 15-foot radius. That seems dangerous. It is. Use it only if you're completely fucked and need an escape window. Nathaniel appeared with a garment bag. Your uniform. It's been modified with micro pockets for the surveillance devices. Everything's positioned for quick access. Chloe took the bag to the bathroom and changed. The uniform fit perfectly. Black pants, white shirt, black vest. Professional. Forgettable. Exactly like what she'd worn at Billionaire for 3 years. She stared at herself in the mirror. Same face. Same tired eyes. But her hands were steady now. The nausea had passed. She'd crossed some threshold between terrified and operational. When she emerged, Sarah gave her an approving nod. You look like someone who serves drinks and goes home to her cat. Perfect. I don't have a cat. The Sterlings don't know that. Nathaniel handed her a small case. 5 devices, 3 audio, 2 video. Placement locations are marked on the floor plan. He pulled up a schematic on one of the monitors. Audio 1 goes in the main sitting room, disguised as a coaster on the coffee table. Audio 2 in Richard's office, inside the pen holder on his desk. Audio 3 in the library, tucked behind the books on the 3rd shelf. And video? 1 in the dining room, positioned to catch the head of the table. 2 in the study, angled at the desk where they'll be reviewing documents. Nathaniel zoomed in on each location. Sarah will guide you if you get disoriented. And Chloe? Yeah? Don't be a hero. Plant what you can. If a location feels wrong, skip it. We can work with partial coverage. We can't work with you getting caught. Understood. Sarah checked her watch. Van leaves in 20 minutes. You should eat something. I'll throw up again. Eat anyway. You're going to be on your feet for 4 hours minimum. Low blood sugar makes you sloppy. She was right. Chloe forced down a protein bar that tasted like cardboard and regret, drank water, tried not to think about all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. At 7 p.m., she climbed into the back of a catering van driven by someone Sarah introduced only as Marcus. Whether that was his real name or a tribute to the dead man they were avenging, Chloe didn't ask. The drive took 30 minutes, long enough for Chloe's anxiety to rebuild, short enough that she didn't have time to talk herself out of this. The Sterling Hotel rose 40 stories above the financial district, all glass and steel and aggressive wealth. The penthouse level was accessible only by private elevator, the kind that required a key card and probably a retinal scan. Chloe entered through the service entrance with 3 other servers from the actual catering company. They barely glanced at her, just another body hired to smile and carry trays and be invisible. The service coordinator, a harried woman named Patricia, who looked like she'd been managing impossible rich people for decades, checked Chloe's fake credentials without really looking at them. You're late, Patricia said. I'm exactly on time. On time is late, early is on time. You must be new. She thrust a tray at Chloe. Champagne, circulate. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact. Don't spill on anyone. The last girl who spilled on Mrs. Sterling got blacklisted from every agency in the city. Yeah, Chloe thought. I remember that girl. Understood. Good. You're serving the main room. Lucas has the dining room. Amanda has the study. Stay in your zones unless instructed otherwise. Sarah's voice crackled in Chloe's earpiece. You're golden. Primary camera is feeding perfectly. Start with the main room. Plant audio 1 when you get an opening. Chloe picked up her tray and walked into the lion's den. The penthouse was obscene. That was the only word for it. Marble floors that probably cost more than most people's houses. Art that belonged in museums. Floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city glittering below like a promise. And people. Wealthy people in expensive clothes having expensive conversations about expensive things. Chloe recognized some faces from her training materials. Richard Sterling held court near the windows, laughing at something a portly man in a suit was saying. Beatrice circulated with practiced grace, her smile sharp and social. Other faces were new. A severe woman in emerald silk who Sarah identified through the earpiece as Elena Volkov, money launderer extraordinaire. A younger man who looked uncomfortable in his designer suit. Thomas Price, Richard's accountant, probably here against his will. Chloe moved through the crowd offering champagne, smiling her invisible smile, being exactly what they expected a server to be. About time, a woman snapped, grabbing a glass without looking at Chloe's face. Of course, ma'am. She drifted toward the coffee table in the sitting area. 2 men were deep in conversation about real estate acquisitions. Neither noticed when Chloe set down her tray, adjusted a decorative coaster, and slipped the first audio device underneath it. 3 seconds. Just like training. Device 1 active, Sarah confirmed. Signal strength excellent. Moving to audio 2. But the office was occupied. Richard and 2 other men had disappeared inside, closing the door behind them. Abort office placement, Nathaniel's voice cut in. Too risky. Move to library instead. Plant audio 3 first, double back for audio 2 if the office clears. Chloe adjusted her route, offering champagne to guests who barely acknowledged her existence. Being invisible had never been easier. These people didn't see servers. They saw ambulatory furniture. The library was empty. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather chairs, the smell of expensive whiskey and old money. Chloe moved to the 3rd shelf like she was admiring the collection, reached for a book, tucked the device behind it. Audio 3 live, Sarah said. You're doing great. Office is still occupied. Hold position and wait for clearance. So Chloe waited, circulated, offered drinks, listened to conversations about stock portfolios and vacation homes and the best schools for children who would grow up never knowing what it meant to struggle. Beatrice Sterling appeared at her elbow. You look familiar. Chloe's heart stopped, then restarted. Training kicked in. I have one of those faces, ma'am. She kept her voice neutral, her expression pleasant but forgettable. Beatrice studied her for a long moment. No, I've seen you before. I work a lot of these events. Perhaps Luminaire. Beatrice's eyes narrowed. You're the waitress who assaulted me. The room didn't actually tilt, but Chloe felt like it did. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I think you're mistaken. I've never worked at Luminaire. Don't lie to me. I never forget a face. Beatrice's voice rose slightly. Richard, come here. Shit. Chloe, abort, Nathaniel said sharply. Get to the service entrance now. But Richard was already approaching, his expression mildly curious. What's wrong, darling? This server. She's the one from the restaurant. The thief. Ma'am, I really don't know what you're talking about, Chloe said, keeping her voice steady even as her pulse hammered. This is my first time working a Sterling event. Richard looked at her, really looked, and Chloe saw the moment he decided it wasn't worth caring about. Beatrice, you're being paranoid. This girl looks nothing like that waitress. She absolutely... The waitress had dark hair. This one is blonde. He wasn't even looking at Chloe anymore, already dismissing her as beneath his attention. Chloe's hair was dark, had been dark her entire life, but she'd bleached it 2 days ago at Sarah's insistence. Change one major identifying feature. They see what they expect to see. Beatrice looked uncertain now. But her face, all these service people look the same. You're seeing patterns that aren't there. Richard took his wife's arm, steering her away. Come, the Volkov deal needs your touch. They left. Chloe exhaled slowly. Holy shit, Sarah breathed in her ear. That was close. Too close, Nathaniel added. Plant the remaining devices and get out. We have enough. Office is clear, Sarah said. You've got maybe 2 minutes before someone else goes in. Chloe moved quickly, tray balanced on one hand, the other reaching into her vest pocket for audio device 2. The office door was slightly ajar. She pushed it open like she was checking if glasses needed clearing. Empty. Desk covered in papers. Computer still on. Screen showing a spreadsheet with numbers that made Chloe's head hurt. She crossed to the desk, lifted the pen holder, placed the device underneath. 5 seconds. Clean, professional. She was turning to leave when she saw it. A folder on the desk. Open. The header visible. Marcus Chen. Final disposition. Chloe's training said leave. Get out. Don't deviate from the plan. But Marcus Chen was dead because of whatever was in that folder. She pulled out the pen camera, clicked it twice, held it over the open pages for 3 seconds, angling to catch everything. What the hell are you doing? Nathaniel's voice was sharp. I said plant and extract. Documenting. Chloe flipped a page, clicked the pen again. Give me 10 seconds. You don't have 10 seconds. Someone's coming. Chloe heard footsteps in the hallway. Male. Heavy. Moving with purpose. She clicked the pen 3 times to stop recording, shoved it back in her pocket, grabbed 2 empty glasses from the desk. The door opened. A man she didn't recognize walked in, stopped when he saw her. What are you doing in here? Clearing glasses, sir. My apologies. Chloe gestured to the desk. I'll be out of your way. Office is off limits to staff. The coordinator didn't mention that. I'm new. She moved toward the door, careful not to rush, not to look guilty. The man studied her face for a beat too long. What's your name? Sarah. The lie came automatically. Sarah Mitchell. You work for the catering company? Yes, sir. First time with this team. Still learning the layout. He stepped aside. Let her pass. Don't let it happen again. Of course, thank you, sir. Chloe walked back to the main room, legs shaking, glasses rattling slightly on her tray. That was insane, Sarah hissed. And brilliant. Please don't do it again. Video devices still need placement, Chloe said quietly, lips barely moving. Forget them. You got what we needed. The Chen file is worth more than any surveillance footage. I can do both. Chloe, I can do both. Nathaniel's voice cut through. Dining room is clear. You have 90 seconds. The dining room was set for 12. Crystal glasses. China that probably cost more per plate than Chloe made in a month. She moved to the head of the table, adjusted a flower arrangement, Position video device 1 to catch the entire table. 60 seconds. The study was across the hall. Chloe slipped inside, found the desk, placed video 2 angled at the chair where someone would sit to review documents. 30 seconds. People entering the hallway. Chloe straightened, turned, walked back toward the main room like she had every right to be there. Voices behind her. Showing him the contracts before midnight or the whole deal falls apart. She didn't look back, just kept walking, tray balanced, smile fixed, invisible. All devices active, Sarah confirmed. Full coverage. Get to the service entrance and we'll extract you. But Chloe made the mistake of glancing toward the windows, where Beatrice Sterling stood talking to a man Chloe had seen in the training materials but couldn't quite place. They were too far away for Chloe to hear the conversation, but their body language was wrong. Too familiar. Too intimate for a business discussion. The man's hand rested on Beatrice's lower back. Beatrice leaned in close, laughing at something he said. Richard was across the room, deep in conversation with Elena Volkov, not watching his wife at all. Chloe, move, Nathaniel said. Who's the man with Beatrice? Dark suit, silver hair. Sarah paused. That's Viktor Kozlov, Russian investor. Suspected ties to organized crime, but nothing proven. Why? They're sleeping together. What? How do you... Body language, the way she touches his arm, the way he looks at her when she's not watching. They're definitely sleeping together. File that information and extract now. Chloe moved toward the service corridor. Almost made it. Excuse me. She turned. The severe woman in emerald, Elena Volkov, stood behind her. Yes, ma'am? I need a vodka tonic. Light on the tonic. Of course. I'll bring that right to you. See that you do. Elena's gaze traveled over Chloe's face, lingering just slightly too long. You're new. First event with this team. Elena turned away, dismissing her. Chloe made the drink, delivered it, finally reached the service corridor. Patricia was there, checking her clipboard. You can leave after final cleanup at 11. We need all hands for... I have another event across town at 10:30, Chloe interrupted. The agency double booked me. I have to leave now or I'll be late. Patricia looked annoyed, but not suspicious. Fine, go. You're not on my regular team anyway. Chloe grabbed her bag from the staff room, changed out of her vest, walked out of the Sterling Hotel through the service entrance like she did this every night. Marcus, the driver, was waiting. Chloe climbed into the van, collapsed against the seat, and finally let herself shake. You did good, Marcus said, pulling into traffic. I almost got caught 3 times. Almost doesn't count. You got the devices placed and got out clean. The drive back to Nathaniel's building took forever, and no time at all. Chloe's brain felt stuffed with information, images, details that wouldn't stop replaying. Sarah met her at the door to the 50th floor. Give me the pen. Chloe handed it over. Sarah immediately connected it to her console, pulled up the footage. The Chen file appeared on screen, pages of documents, financial records, emails, a photograph of Marcus Chen's body. Chloe looked away. This is it, Sarah breathed. This is the evidence we needed. Look, transaction records tying the Sterling hotels directly to offshore accounts, shipping manifests for goods that were never declared. And this? She pointed to an email. Richard discussing Marcus's accident with Viktor Kozlov. Nathaniel appeared, reading over Sarah's shoulder. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, settled. We have them, he said quietly. Not yet. Sarah pulled up another screen. We have evidence of financial crimes, but we need them discussing it on tape, admitting what they did. The audio devices are picking up ambient conversation, but nothing incriminating yet. These people aren't stupid. They're not going to confess to murder while servers circulate. So what now? Chloe asked. Nathaniel turned to her. Now you go home, rest. We monitor the feeds and wait for them to get comfortable enough to talk. That could take weeks. Could take hours. We don't know. He paused. But you did your job. Perfectly. Everything else is on us. Chloe should have felt relieved. Should have been happy to step back, let the professionals handle it. Instead, she felt restless, unfinished. The affair, she said. Beatrice and Viktor. Does that matter? Sarah and Nathaniel exchanged a look. Potentially, Sarah said slowly. If Victor is involved in the operation, and if Beatrice is sharing information with him that Richard doesn't know about, then there's conflict in the organization, Nathaniel finished, which makes people sloppy, paranoid, more likely to say things they shouldn't. So we exploit it. We monitor it. There's a difference. Chloe nodded, but she was already thinking, already seeing the pieces move on a board that was bigger than she'd realized. Marcus drove her home. She climbed the stairs to her apartment. The elevator was actually working now, but she needed the physical exertion to process everything. Inside, she locked the door, turned on the shower as hot as it would go, stood under the spray until her skin burned and her mind stopped racing. She'd done it. Walked into a criminal organization's headquarters, planted surveillance devices, photographed evidence, and walked out without getting caught. Well, almost without getting caught. Beatrice had recognized her. If Richard hadn't been so casually dismissive, if he'd looked closer, if Chloe's hair had still been dark. But it wasn't. And he hadn't. And she'd survived. Chloe dried off, changed into actual pajamas for the first time in 2 weeks, lay down in bed. Her phone buzzed. Emma. Hey, Chloe answered. You sound different. Different how? I don't know, less tired, more, I don't know, something. Just had a long day at the new job. The mysterious job you still won't tell me about. It's not mysterious, it's just boring corporate stuff. Chloe. Emma. Her sister sighed. Fine. Keep your secrets, but I'm getting discharged tomorrow. Chloe sat up. What? Already? Apparently when your bills are paid in full and your treatment is covered, they stop finding reasons to keep you in the hospital. Emma's voice was lighter than it had been in months. I can come home. Emma, that's amazing. Yeah, it is. A pause. This job of yours, it's real, right? The benefits, the coverage, all of it? It's real. And you're safe? Chloe thought about Beatrice's suspicious stare, Elena's assessing gaze, the man who'd caught her in Richard's office. I'm safe, she lied. They talked for another 10 minutes before Emma got tired. Chloe promised to pick her up from the hospital tomorrow, bring real food, get their apartment ready for Emma to actually live in instead of just visiting between treatments. After they hung up, Chloe lay in the dark and tried to remember the last time Emma had sounded that hopeful. Couldn't. Her phone buzzed again. Nathaniel, we have something, he said without preamble. Conference call in the study. They think the room is secure, but video 2 is catching everything. When? Happening now. I'm sending you the feed. A link appeared. Chloe opened it. The screen showed Richard Sterling's study. 6 people sat around a table. Richard, Beatrice, Victor, Elena. 2 other men Chloe didn't recognize. Absolutely certain the transfer can't be traced, Richard was saying. Completely certain. Elena's voice was crisp, confident. The accounts are layered through 4 jurisdictions. Even if someone got suspicious, they'd need years and a team of forensic accountants to untangle it. And the Chen situation is permanently resolved? Chloe's breath caught. Chen is dead, Victor said flatly. His files are destroyed. His sister is a non-factor. The whole thing is buried. Sarah's a non-factor. Beatrice laughed. That woman has been asking questions for 18 months. Asking questions isn't the same as having answers. She has no proof, no witnesses, nothing but grief and conspiracy theories. I still think we should have dealt with her too, one of the unknown men said. Unnecessary, Richard waved a hand. Killing one person looks like suicide. Killing 2 people in the same family looks like murder. We're not amateurs. Chloe's phone buzzed. Sarah's name appeared. She answered, but didn't speak. Just listened to Sarah's breathing on the other end. Steady. Controlled. But underneath it, something raw and broken. They're going to pay for this, Sarah whispered finally. Every single one of them. The video continued. Richard discussing shipment schedules. Elena outlining money laundering protocols. Victor mentioning buyers in 6 different countries. This is it, Nathaniel said, his voice appearing on the call. This is everything we need. Conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, international smuggling. We have them. So what's next? Chloe asked. Next, we take this to the FBI. We have an agent who's been waiting for solid evidence. He paused. This ends them. When? Tomorrow. We turn over the files, the audio, the video. Let federal prosecutors do what they do. It's over, Chloe. You can walk away. She should have been relieved, should have been celebrating. Instead, she watched Beatrice Sterling on the video feed, laughing about Marcus Chen's death like it was a minor inconvenience they'd handled, and felt something cold settle in her chest. Chloe? Nathaniel said. Did you hear me? It's over. Yeah, she said. I heard you. But as she watched the Sterlings celebrate their crimes, secure in the knowledge that they were untouchable, Chloe knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because she'd seen something during the event. Something she hadn't mentioned. Something that was bothering her more the longer she thought about it. The man who'd caught her in the office. The one who'd asked her name. She'd seen him before. Not in the training materials. Not in any of the surveillance photos. She'd seen him at the hospital. In the hallway outside Emma's room 3 days ago. He'd been wearing scrubs then, carrying a tablet, looking like he belonged. But he wasn't a doctor. Wasn't a nurse. He was one of the Sterling security team. And he'd been at Emma's hospital, checking on her, making sure Chloe had the leverage she needed to stay quiet if things went wrong. The Sterlings knew about Emma, which meant they knew about Chloe, which meant she wasn't invisible anymore. She ended the call with Nathaniel and Sarah, sat in the dark, and tried to figure out when exactly the hunter had become the hunted. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Silence on the other end. Just breathing. Hello? Chloe said. A woman's voice. Beatrice. I know it was you tonight. I know exactly who you are, Chloe Bennett, and if you think you're going to walk away from this, you're even stupider than I thought. The line went dead. Chloe sat frozen, phone pressed to her ear, heart hammering against her ribs. They knew. They'd known all along. And she'd just walked directly into a trap that was still closing. Chloe's hands were shaking so badly, she dropped her phone. It hit the floor with a crack that spiderwebbed across the screen, but she barely noticed. Beatrice's voice still echoed in her head, cold and certain and absolutely terrifying. They knew. She called Nathaniel. It rang 4 times before he answered. They know, Chloe said before he could speak. Beatrice just called me. She knows who I am. She knows everything. Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Home. My apartment. Get out, right now. Don't pack. Don't grab anything. Just get out and start walking toward... A sound in the hallway. Footsteps. Heavy. Multiple people. Chloe's blood went cold. There's someone outside my door. Window. Fire escape. Move. But Chloe's apartment was on the 4th floor, and the fire escape was rusted metal that hadn't been inspected in a decade. She ran to the window anyway, shoved it open, looked down. 2 men stood in the alley below, looking up, waiting. They're covering the exits, she whispered. Bathroom. Lock yourself in. I'm sending Sarah now, but you need to buy time. The footsteps stopped outside her door. Someone knocked. Polite. Professional. Absolutely menacing in its normalcy. Ms. Bennett? A man's voice. Familiar. The security guard who'd caught her in Richard's office. We just need to talk. Open the door, please. Chloe backed toward the bathroom, phone pressed to her ear, every muscle coiled tight. Don't open it, Nathaniel said. Don't engage. Sarah is 15 minutes out. I don't have 15 minutes. The knocking stopped. The doorknob rattled. Then the sound of metal on metal. Someone picking the lock. Chloe ran to the bathroom, slammed the door, twisted the lock. It was flimsy, meant to keep out roommates, not people who'd killed before. They're breaking in. I know. Listen to me very carefully. Do you have anything you can use as a weapon? Chloe looked around the tiny bathroom. Shampoo bottles, a plunger, a towel rack that was barely attached to the wall. Nothing. Under the sink, cleaning supplies, bleach and ammonia, mix them. That makes chlorine gas. That'll kill me too. Not if you wet a towel and breathe through it. It'll give you maybe 2 minutes before the fumes become lethal, but it'll drive them back long enough for Sarah to get there. The apartment door crashed open. Shit, Chloe breathed. She grabbed the bleach and ammonia, dumped them in the sink. The chemical reaction was immediate, acrid. burning, exactly as horrible as high school chemistry had promised. She soaked a towel in water, pressed it to her face. Footsteps in her apartment. Multiple people. Searching. Bathroom, someone said. Doors locked. Ms. Bennett, the security guard again. This is unnecessary. We just want to talk. About what? Chloe's voice came out muffled through the towel. About how you killed Marcus Chen? About how you're laundering money through the hotels? Or about how you had someone watching my sister in the hospital? Silence. Then, you've been busy. So have you. Open the door. Let's discuss this like adults. Adults don't break into people's apartments at midnight. Fair point. A pause. But you put surveillance equipment in Mr. Sterling's penthouse. That's not very adult either. The gas was filling the bathroom now. Chloe's eyes watered despite the wet towel. Her throat burned. Nathaniel? She whispered into the phone. How much longer? 12 minutes. Can you hold? I don't know. Someone kicked the bathroom door. The frame splintered but held. Last chance, Ms. Bennett. Open the door or we open it for you. Chloe looked around desperately. The window was tiny. Barely big enough for a child, definitely not big enough for an adult. The vent cover was screwed down. There was nowhere to go. Another kick. The frame splintered further. We're coming in. Then you're breathing chlorine gas, Chloe called out. I mixed bleach and ammonia. You come in here, you're choking on fumes. The kicking stopped. She's bluffing, someone said. Smell that, the security guard replied. That's not a bluff. That's chemical warfare. Footsteps retreated. Voices arguing in the other room, too low for Chloe to make out words. Good, Nathaniel said in her ear. You bought time. 10 more minutes. But Chloe's lungs were burning. The towel was soaked through. The gas was thicker, heavier, filling the small space faster than she'd expected. She was going to pass out, or worse. I can't breathe, she gasped. Yes, you can. Focus. Slow breaths. Sarah is 8 minutes out. I don't have 8 minutes. Then make them. You didn't survive 2 weeks of training and an infiltration operation to die in your bathroom. Breathe, Chloe. She breathed, shallow, controlled. Each lungful felt like swallowing fire. The voices in the apartment got louder, arguing, then footsteps running toward the front door. What's happening? Chloe whispered. Someone in the hallway shouted, not one of the intruders. A neighbor. I called the cops. They're on their way. The security guard swore. We're out. Go, now. More footsteps, running. The apartment door slamming open. Then silence. They're gone, Chloe said. Don't move yet. Could be a trick. But Chloe couldn't wait. The gas was too thick. Her vision was tunneling. She needed air. She wrapped the wet towel around her hand, broke the bathroom window with her elbow. Glass shattered. Cold air rushed in, sweet and clean, and absolutely perfect. Chloe sucked in breath after breath, coughing, eyes streaming, but alive. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Police are coming, she managed. Good. Tell them everything. Show them the evidence. This actually works in our favor. How? You're a victim now, not just a witness. That changes everything. Sarah's voice cut in. I'm 3 minutes out. Stay on the phone until I get there. The sirens got louder, closer. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. Chloe stumbled out of the bathroom through the chemical haze still hanging in the apartment to the front door that hung open on broken hinges. A police officer was already coming up the stairs. Young, alert, hand on his weapon. Ma'am, are you hurt? They broke in, tried to... Chloe's voice gave out. She coughed, tasted chemicals. Sit down. Ambulance is coming. He spoke into his radio. 4th floor clear. Victim is mobile, requesting medical. Another officer appeared, then another. They secured the apartment, checked the rooms, found the chemical mess in the bathroom. Jesus, one of them muttered. She made chlorine gas. Self-defense, the first officer said. Smart. Sarah arrived 6 minutes later, out of breath, eyes scanning the scene with professional assessment. She had credentials that identified her as Chloe's employer, corporate security, authorized to speak on her behalf. She's not saying anything without a lawyer present, Sarah told the officers. We just need a statement. And she'll give one. Tomorrow. With legal representation. Tonight, she's going to the hospital to get checked for chemical exposure. The officer looked like he wanted to argue, but a paramedic was already guiding Chloe toward the stairs, checking her vitals, asking about her breathing. In the ambulance, Sarah sat beside her while the paramedic administered oxygen. "You did good," Sarah said quietly. "I almost died." "But you didn't. You improvised. You survived." She paused. "Nathaniel's meeting us at the hospital. We need to talk about next steps." "Next steps?" "They know who I am. They tried to kidnap me. There are no next steps. I'm done." "You're not done. You're just getting started." Chloe wanted to argue, but the oxygen mask made it difficult, and her lungs still felt like they'd been scrubbed with steel wool. The hospital was the same one where Emma was staying. Different floor, different department, but the same antiseptic smell and fluorescent lights and atmosphere of controlled crisis. They put Chloe in an exam room, checked her lungs, took blood samples to test for chemical exposure, told her she was lucky. Another 5 minutes in that bathroom, and she'd be dead. Nathaniel appeared while the doctor was explaining the treatment plan. He looked different, less controlled, actually worried. "I need a moment with my employee," he told the doctor. 5 minutes. Then she needs rest. Once they were alone, Nathaniel pulled up a chair. "How bad?" "Lungs are irritated. Blood work will tell us if there's serious damage. But I'm alive." "Good." He paused. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have anticipated they'd move this fast." "How did they know? How did Beatrice figure out it was me?" "We're still piecing that together. Best guess? Someone recognized you despite the hair change. Or they reviewed their own security footage and spotted you placing devices. Either way, they connected the dots faster than we expected." Sarah leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "The question is what we do now. You're burned as an asset. They know who you are. But we have the evidence. We can still take them down." "At what cost?" Chloe asked. "They know about Emma. They had someone at this hospital watching her. What happens when we go to the FBI? What happens when the Sterlings realize they're about to be arrested?" "They run," Nathaniel said. "Or they tie up loose ends." "Exactly. And Emma is a loose end." Chloe's voice was hoarse, but the words came out clear. "So no, we're not going to the FBI. Not yet. Chloe, they'll kill her. You know they will. The moment they think they're caught, they'll eliminate anyone who could be used as leverage against me." She looked at Nathaniel. "You said you'd keep her safe. You promised." "I will. I am. I've already moved her to a private facility under a different name. They won't find her." "You moved my sister without telling me." "I moved her 30 minutes ago while you were in the ambulance. She thinks it's a hospital transfer for better treatment. She's safe, Chloe. I swear." Chloe wanted to be angry, should have been furious, but mostly she was just exhausted. "What now?" she asked. Nathaniel and Sarah exchanged a look. Some silent communication passed between them. "Now we accelerate," Sarah said. "The Sterlings know you planted surveillance. They're going to sweep their properties, find the devices, probably move their entire operation to a new location. Which means we have maybe 48 hours before the evidence we gathered becomes useless," Nathaniel added. "We need to force their hand, make them act before they're ready." "How?" "By making them think you have more than you actually do." Nathaniel pulled out his phone, showed her a video file. "This is the footage from the pen camera, the Chen file. It's damning, but it's not complete. Half the pages are blurry. Some of the key evidence is unreadable. So we have partial proof of a crime, but not enough to guarantee conviction," Sarah said. "But the Sterlings don't know that." Chloe was starting to see where this was going. "You want to bluff? I want to make them think we have everything. Documentation, video, audio recordings of them discussing Marcus's murder. The whole package." Nathaniel leaned forward. "We leak that information. Let them panic. Watch them scramble to protect themselves." "And when they scramble, they make mistakes," Sarah finished. "Or they come after me again, harder this time." "They'll try," Nathaniel agreed. "Which is why you're not staying here. You're coming with me. Protected location, 24-hour security. They won't get near you." "What about Emma?" "Already handled. She's in a private medical facility 2 hours outside the city. Armed security. No visitors except you and me. She's safer than she's ever been." Chloe's head was pounding. The oxygen was helping her breathe, but doing nothing for the fear that sat like lead in her stomach. "This is insane." "Yes, Nathaniel said. But it's also our only option. We go to the FBI now with partial evidence and the Sterling's lawyer up. They have resources, connections. They could drag this out for years. But if we make them panic, make them think we have ironclad proof of everything, they'll do something desperate. And desperate people make fatal errors. Or they succeed in killing everyone who knows anything. They could try. Sarah's smile was sharp. But we're very hard to kill, trust me. The doctor returned before Chloe could respond. Blood work shows elevated exposure levels, but nothing critical. We want to keep you overnight for observation, but you should make a full recovery. She's checking out AMA, Nathaniel said. Against medical advice. Well, we'll sign whatever paperwork you need. The doctor looked unhappy, but not surprised. Your funeral. Sign here. 20 minutes later, Chloe was in the back of an SUV with windows tinted so dark she couldn't see out. Sarah drove. Nathaniel sat beside Chloe, working on a laptop that displayed security feeds from what looked like a dozen different locations. Where are we going? Chloe asked. Somewhere they won't find you. The drive took 40 minutes. They left the city, took highways that turned into back roads, finally pulled up to a gate that looked like it belonged to a military installation. Beyond it, a house. Except house was inadequate. This was a compound. Stone and steel and glass, set into a hillside with sight lines that covered every approach. Welcome to the safe house, Sarah said. Former military installation, now privately owned. 6 bedrooms, full security suite, and enough firepower to hold off a small army. Whose place is this? Mine, Nathaniel said. I bought it 3 years ago, after my wife died and I realized how vulnerable my son and I were. It was the first time he'd mentioned his son directly. They went inside. The interior was surprisingly warm, comfortable furniture, artwork that looked personal rather than expensive, toys scattered in one corner that suggested a child actually lived here sometimes. Your son, Chloe said. Where is he? Safe. With his grandmother in Europe. He doesn't need to be anywhere near this mess. A woman appeared from the kitchen, late 50s, competent-looking, with kind eyes and calloused hands. You must be Chloe. I'm Margaret. I manage the house. Your room is ready upstairs, second door on the left. There's clothes in the closet that should fit. Not fancy, but clean. Thank you. Hungry? I can make something. Chloe's stomach was still churning from the chemical exposure, but she hadn't eaten since the protein bar before the operation. Maybe just toast? I can do better than toast. Give me 20 minutes. Margaret disappeared back into the kitchen. Sarah headed toward what looked like a security office. Nathaniel gestured for Chloe to follow him upstairs. The room was simple but comfortable. Queen bed, private bathroom. Windows that overlooked the valley below, though Chloe noticed they were bulletproof glass. Get some rest, Nathaniel said. Tomorrow, we start the next phase. Which is making the Sterlings think their entire world is about to collapse. He paused in the doorway. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know it's more dangerous than I promised, and I know you have every right to walk away. Do I? Walk away, I mean, do I actually have that option? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Honestly? No, not anymore. They know who you are. They know about Emma. Even if you disappeared tomorrow, they'd find you eventually. The only way out is through. Through meaning destroying them completely. Meaning making sure they can't hurt anyone else ever again. He met her eyes. I'm sorry, Chloe. I wish there was another way. Yeah, me too. He left. Chloe sat on the bed, staring at nothing, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. Yesterday morning, she'd been a waitress with impossible dreams. Tonight, she was hiding in a fortified compound while criminals who'd murdered before tried to figure out how to kill her. Her phone buzzed. She'd almost forgotten she still had it. The screen was cracked but functional. Emma's name appeared. Chloe answered. Hey, where are you? Emma sounded worried. The nurses said I was being transferred for enhanced treatment options, but nobody will tell me where you are or why I can't have visitors. It's complicated. Chloe, I'm in some kind of private facility with security guards and no cell reception except this one phone they gave me that only calls you. What the hell is going on? I told you I took a new job. There were some complications, threats. My boss moved you somewhere safe as a precaution. Threats? What kind of job did you take? The kind that pays well but comes with risks. I'm handling it. By hiding me in a secure facility, like I'm a witness in a mob trial? Something like that. Emma was quiet for a moment. I want the truth, all of it. You owe me that. She was right. Chloe did owe her, so she told her. Not everything. She left out the break-in, the chemical gas, the men waiting in the alley, but she told Emma about Nathaniel's offer, about the Sterling family, about Marcus Chen's murder and the investigation, and Chloe's role in gathering evidence. When she finished, Emma was silent for so long Chloe thought the call had dropped. Emma? I'm here. Just processing. Another pause. You infiltrated organized crime for money, for your medical bills, for a future, for me. You risked your life for me. I'd do it again. That's what I'm afraid of. Emma's voice was thick. Chloe, you can't keep destroying yourself to save me. It's not sustainable. It's not fair. Life's not fair. You got sick. I got desperate. We're both doing what we have to do to survive. Survival shouldn't require you to become a spy. Too late. I already did. Emma laughed, the sound shaky. You're insane. You know that? Yeah, I'm getting that feedback a lot lately. They talked for another 10 minutes before Emma got tired. She was safe, she was comfortable, and she'd been told her treatments would continue uninterrupted. That was enough. Chloe ended the call and went downstairs. Voices came from the security office. She followed them. The office was impressive. Wall of monitors showing security feeds, computer equipment that looked military grade. Sarah sat at the main console, Nathaniel standing behind her, both focused on a screen showing the Sterling Hotel. What am I looking at? Chloe asked from the doorway. Panic, Sarah said. Watch. The feed showed the penthouse. Richard and Beatrice, 4 security personnel, and 2 men in suits who looked like lawyers or accountants. They were systematically tearing the place apart. Looking for surveillance devices, Nathaniel explained. They found 2 of the audio bugs already, still searching for the others. They won't find the video cameras, Sarah added. Those are too well hidden, but they're thorough. Give them another few hours. What happens when they find everything? They'll know exactly what we recorded, which conversations, which documents. Nathaniel pulled up another screen. That's when we hit them with the leak. The screen showed a draft email. Recipients included the FBI, the DEA, the State Attorney General, and 3 major news organizations. The body of the email outlined the Sterling's operation in clinical detail. Attached files included the Chen documents, transaction records, and excerpts from the surveillance audio. You're sending this tonight? Chloe asked. In 3 hours. Time to hit right when they think they've contained the damage. Nathaniel checked his watch. By sunrise, the Sterling family will wake up to federal agents at their door and their crimes on the front page of every newspaper in the state. And they'll run. Some of them will try. We're counting on it. Richard has a private jet. Beatrice has offshore accounts in 4 countries. Victor has connections that could get him to Moscow in 12 hours. Sarah highlighted 3 different screens. We're monitoring all of it. The moment they make a move, we know. And Emma? Protected. I have a team on her facility. Nobody gets in or out without my authorization. Chloe studied the monitors, watching the Sterlings search their penthouse with increasing desperation. These were people who'd killed to protect their secrets, who'd built an empire on crime and corruption and the absolute certainty that they were untouchable. In 3 hours, they'd learn differently. I want to be there when you send it, Chloe said. Nathaniel looked at her. Why? Because they tried to kill me tonight. Because they threatened my sister. Because they murdered your friend and got away with it for 18 months. She met his gaze. I want to watch their world end. Sarah grinned. I knew I liked you. The next 3 hours were the longest of Chloe's life. She watched the monitors, ate the food Margaret brought, tried not to think about all the ways this could still go catastrophically wrong. At 3:47 a.m., Sarah pulled up the email. Final check. Everyone ready? Nathaniel reviewed the attachments one last time. Send it. Sarah's finger hovered over the button. Once we do this, there's no taking it back. The Sterlings will know exactly who hit them. They'll come after us with everything they have. Good, Nathaniel said. Let them come. Sarah clicked send. The email disappeared into the digital void. Somewhere in cyberspace, it was replicating, distributing, landing in inboxes of people with the power to dismantle criminal empires. On the monitors, Richard Sterling's phone rang. He answered it, listened, then went absolutely still. "He knows," Sarah said. They watched Richard end the call and immediately make another, then another, his movements getting more frantic with each conversation. Beatrice appeared, demanding answers. Richard showed her his phone. Her face went white. "Beautiful," Sarah breathed. "Absolutely beautiful." More phones ringing, more frantic conversations, security personnel gathering, receiving orders, scattering to execute them. Then Richard did exactly what Nathaniel predicted. He grabbed a bag and headed for the door. "He's running," Sarah said, tracking his phone now, heading toward, airport, private terminal. "Let him get to the plane," Nathaniel instructed. "FBI is waiting at the destination. He'll land directly into custody." Beatrice went a different direction, toward the hotel's executive offices. "She's going for the safe," Sarah said. "Cash. Probably documents we didn't get. Smart. Let her take what she wants. We flagged her passport. She won't make it out of the country." But Victor was the wild card. He didn't run to the airport or the office. He disappeared into the city. "Lost him," Sarah admitted. "He's better at this than the others." "We'll find him," Nathaniel said. "He can't hide forever." By sunrise, federal agents were raiding Sterling properties across the city. The news was full of breaking reports about corruption, money laundering, international smuggling. Marcus Chen's name appeared in every article. His death reframed from suicide to murder. Sarah's phone rang. She answered, listened, smiled. "Richard's in custody. Landed in Miami, walked directly into federal agents. He's screaming for his lawyers." And Beatrice? Picked up at the Canadian border. Apparently she thought crossing by car would be less suspicious than flying. Sarah scrolled through updates. Elena Volkov is still in the wind, but Interpol has been notified. The accountant flipped immediately, offering testimony in exchange for immunity. "So we won," Chloe said. "We won the first battle," Nathaniel corrected. "Victor is still out there, and wealthy people have a way of making legal problems disappear. But yes, for now, we won." The sun was fully up when Margaret brought coffee and breakfast. Chloe ate mechanically, tasting nothing, watching the news coverage that detailed the collapse of one of the city's oldest families. "You should sleep," Nathaniel said. "You've been awake for over 24 hours. "So have you." "I'm used to it." "You're not." But Chloe couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop watching the monitors, waiting for the other shoe to drop, expecting Victor to appear with a gun, or the FBI to decide she was a criminal too, or some new disaster to prove this victory was temporary. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Victor's voice. "Miss Bennett, we need to talk." Every muscle in Chloe's body went rigid. "How did you get this number?" "I have resources. As you've just demonstrated, so do you." He paused. "I'm not calling to threaten you. I'm calling to negotiate." "I don't negotiate with murderers." "Everyone negotiates with murderers. They just don't call us that." Victor's accent was faint, but present. "I have information you want. You have evidence I need destroyed. We can help each other." "Pass. Don't be hasty. The Sterlings are finished. Richard, Beatrice, their entire operation. But I was never fully invested in their enterprise. I was a consultant, and consultants survive by knowing when to cut losses." Nathaniel was gesturing frantically, mouthing words. "Keep him talking." Sarah was already tracing the call. "What kind of information?" Chloe asked. "The names of everyone involved. Federal agents, state politicians, judges who took bribes, all of it. Evidence that makes what you gathered look like a parking ticket. In exchange for? The Chen documents, the originals, and your assurance that my name doesn't appear in any testimony." "That's not how this works." "That's exactly how this works. The Sterlings were always going to fall. They were careless, arrogant. But I'm neither. I'm offering you a chance to burn the entire corrupt system to the ground. Take it or don't. But this offer expires in 1 hour." The call ended. "Got him," Sarah said immediately. "Location is interesting. He's at a diner in Brooklyn, public place. Lots of witnesses." "It's a trap," Chloe said. "Probably," Nathaniel agreed. "But he's not wrong. If he actually has evidence of broader corruption, we need it. You're seriously considering this? I'm considering every angle. Nathaniel pulled up a map, marked Victor's location. Sarah, how fast can you get a team there? 20 minutes, but if he sees us coming, he'll run. So we don't spook him. We send someone he's expecting. Nathaniel looked at Chloe. He called you. He wants to negotiate with you. You go in, wear a wire, get him talking. We grab him the moment we have what we need. Absolutely not, Sarah said. She's not trained for field negotiations. He could kill her before we get inside. He's in a public diner. He won't risk a scene. He's killed before. In private, controlled situations. This is different. They were talking about Chloe like she wasn't there, like her life was a tactical consideration rather than an actual existence. I'll do it, she said. Both of them turned to stare at her. Chloe, Nathaniel started. He called me. He wants to talk to me. If there's even a chance he has evidence that brings down more of these people, we need it. She was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Wire me up. I'll get him talking. You grab him when you have enough. This is different from planning surveillance devices, Sarah warned. This is face-to-face with someone who's killed people for less than you've done to his business partners. I know. You could die. I almost died last night. At least this time I'll see it coming. Nathaniel studied her face. You're sure? No, Chloe thought. I'm terrified. But Emma is safe. The Sterlings are in custody. And if this Victor has information that saves other people from going through what we went through, then it's worth the risk. I'm sure, she said. Sarah swore quietly but started prepping equipment. The wire was even smaller than the one Chloe had worn to the Sterling event. Nearly invisible once positioned properly. Camera in your jacket button, Sarah explained. Microphone in your collar. Panic word is extraction. You say that, we come in immediately, guns out. Got it. And Chloe? Don't be a hero. Get the information and get out. That's all. They drove to Brooklyn in 2 vehicles, Chloe in one with Nathaniel, Sarah, and her team in the other. The diner Victor had chosen was exactly as advertised. Public, crowded, the kind of place where violence would be immediately noticed. He'll be watching for a tail, Nathaniel said. Go in alone. We'll be monitoring from outside. 30 minutes maximum. After that, we extract you regardless. Chloe climbed out of the car, crossed the street, pushed open the diner door. Victor sat in a back booth, coffee in front of him, expensive coat draped over the seat like he belonged there. He looked up when Chloe approached, smiled. Ms. Bennett, I'm glad you came. Let's skip the pleasantries. You have information. I'm listening. Direct. I appreciate that. Victor gestured to the seat across from him. Please. Chloe sat, every nerve on high alert, acutely aware of the wire transmitting every word back to Sarah and Nathaniel. The Sterlings were useful idiots, Victor began. Rich, connected, arrogant enough to believe they were untouchable. Perfect front for a much larger operation. Which you ran, which I facilitated. There's a difference. He sipped his coffee. But I'm a practical man. When a revenue stream becomes more trouble than it's worth, you close it. The Sterlings became trouble the moment you walked into Richard's office. How did you know it was me? Beatrice recognized you despite the hair. But I recognized something else. That look in your eye when you served drinks, like you were memorizing everything, cataloging. Most servers look through the guests. You looked at them. He smiled. I knew someone had sent you. The question was who? And you figured it out. Nathaniel Pierce, Marcus Chen's grieving friend. 18 months of investigation. Of course it was him. Victor leaned back. I warned Richard you were a problem. He didn't listen. Beatrice wanted to kill you immediately. I suggested something more subtle. Like breaking into my apartment. That was never my plan. That was panic. Sloppiness. He shook his head. But here we are. The Sterlings are finished. You and Pierce are victorious, and I'm offering you something bigger. The names. 15 federal agents on my payroll, 3 state senators, 2 judges, and documentation of every transaction, every bribe, every favor traded over the last 5 years. Victor pulled a USB drive from his pocket, set it on the table. Everything you need to clean out corruption at the highest levels. In exchange for? My freedom, full immunity, and you destroy every piece of evidence connecting me to the Sterling operation. Chloe stared at the USB drive. How do I know it's real? You don't. That's the gamble. Victor smiled. But consider this. I have no reason to lie. The Sterlings were my business partners, not my friends. Their collapse doesn't hurt me unless you make it hurt me. Give me immunity, I walk away. You get names that will make your current victory look like a practice run. It was tempting, dangerously tempting. I need to make a call, Chloe said. By all means. She pulled out her phone, dialed Nathaniel. He has a USB drive. Claims it has names. 15 agents, 3 senators, 2 judges. He wants full immunity. Tell him maybe, Nathaniel said. Ask to verify the contents first. Keep him talking. Chloe relayed the message. Victor nodded. Reasonable. Take the drive. Verify. We meet again in 24 hours with your answer. He slid the USB across the table. Chloe reached for it. Victor's hand clamped down on her wrist. But understand this. If you double-cross me, if you take this drive and try to use it without honoring our agreement, people you love will disappear. Your sister, your employer, anyone you've ever cared about. I have resources the Sterlings never dreamed of. Let go of me. Do we have an understanding? Sarah's voice crackled in Chloe's ear. Say extraction, we're coming in. But something in Victor's eyes made Chloe pause. He wasn't bluffing, he meant every word. We have an understanding, she said quietly. Victor released her wrist. Good. 24 hours. He stood, dropped cash on the table for his coffee, walked out of the diner like he hadn't just threatened murder. Chloe grabbed the USB drive, hands shaking, and headed for the exit. Sarah intercepted her on the street. We lost him. He went into the subway. Cameras show him getting on a train but not getting off. He's gone. He knew you were watching. Of course he did. Sarah looked at the USB drive. Is it real? I don't know. Back at the safe house, they plugged the drive into an isolated computer system designed to detect malware. The files were clean, and when they opened them, the contents were exactly what Victor promised. Names, transaction records, audio recordings of bribery, extortion, corruption at levels that made the Sterling operation look amateur. This is real, Nathaniel said, scrolling through file after file. All of it. This could bring down half the state government. At the cost of letting a murderer walk free, Chloe added. Is he a murderer, though? We have proof the Sterlings killed Marcus. We have proof they ran the money laundering operation. But Victor? Nathaniel pulled up files. He's a facilitator, a consultant. He connected buyers and sellers. Technically, he never pulled a trigger. Technically isn't the same as morally. No, but legally it might be enough to justify immunity if the information he's providing brings down bigger fish. Chloe looked at the names on the screen, politicians she recognized, federal agents she'd seen on the news, judges who'd sentenced people to prison while taking bribes to let others walk free. What do we do? She asked. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. We bring this to the FBI. Let them decide. If they want to offer Victor immunity in exchange for testimony, that's their call. If they want to prosecute everyone including him, that's also their call. But we don't make deals with him directly. We give the evidence to people with the authority to use it. And if Victor disappears before they can arrest him, then at least we took down everyone else. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was the only one they had. Sarah copied the files, encrypted them, sent them to 3 different federal prosecutors simultaneously. Within 2 hours, Chloe's phone rang. Victor. Have you made a decision? The FBI has your files, Chloe said. They'll be contacting you about a potential immunity deal. That's the best we can do. Silence. Then, you gave them everything. You gave us everything. We just passed it along to people who can actually prosecute it. I offered you a deal. And I'm offering you advice. Turn yourself in. Cooperate. Maybe you walk away from this. Maybe you don't. But running just makes you look guilty. Victor laughed, the sound bitter. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. I stopped criminals from hurting people, including you. The call ended. He's going to run, Sarah said. Let him, Nathaniel replied. He gave us what we needed. Whether he faces justice or not, we've dismantled his entire network. By evening, more arrests were being made. Federal agents, state senators, people who'd thought they were untouchable, learning they weren't. The news called it the biggest corruption scandal in the state's history. Chloe called it justice. But she also knew it wasn't over. Victor was still out there. Maybe he'd surface eventually. Maybe he'd disappear into whatever network of criminals existed beyond reach of law enforcement. Either way, the Sterlings were finished. Marcus Chen's murder was avenged, and Chloe Bennett, the invisible waitress nobody had ever noticed, had helped tear down an empire. She was exhausted, terrified, and somehow, impossibly, proud of what she'd done. Emma called that night. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I think so." "The news is insane. They're saying this is the biggest case in decades." "It is, and you were part of it. A small part. Don't do that. Don't minimize what you did." Emma's voice was firm. "You could have died, multiple times, but you didn't, and now people who hurt others are going to prison. That matters." "I know." "So be proud. You're allowed to be proud." Chloe smiled despite everything. "Thanks, Em. I love you." "Love you too." After they hung up, Chloe stood at the window, looking out at the valley below. Somewhere out there, Victor was running. The Sterlings were in custody, awaiting trial. Corrupt officials were being arrested. And she was safe. Emma was safe. They had a future that didn't involve drowning in medical debt or choosing between food and rent. It had cost everything, almost killed her, changed her into someone she barely recognized, but it was worth it. Behind her, Nathaniel appeared in the doorway. "You should rest. Tomorrow's going to be long. Depositions, testimony prep. The FBI wants to talk to you extensively." "I know. You did good work, Chloe. Better than I had any right to expect. I had good teachers. Still, most people would have broken. You didn't." She turned to face him. "What happens now? After the trials? After all of this is over?" Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "That depends. You could go back to your life, different job, better circumstances, but essentially the same existence. Or you could work for me permanently, intelligence gathering, investigation, making sure people like the Sterlings don't get away with crimes just because they're rich and connected." "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a purpose, if you want it." Chloe thought about Luminaire, about serving drinks to people who never saw her, about being invisible, powerless, trapped in a life that was slowly suffocating her. Then she thought about tonight, about facing Victor, about gathering evidence and making a difference and actually mattering. "I'll think about it," she said. That's all I ask." He left her alone with the darkness and the view and a future that was terrifying and exciting and completely uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was hers. And that was enough. The FBI interview lasted 6 hours, then another 4, then 3 more the day after that. Chloe told the story so many times she started hearing her own voice in her sleep. The restaurant, the training, the infiltration, Victor's offer. Every detail documented, recorded, added to a case file that was growing thick enough to require multiple banker's boxes. Agent Michelle Torres, mid-40s, sharp eyes, zero patience for bullshit, led most of the questioning. She had a way of asking the same thing 17 different ways until she was satisfied Chloe wasn't hiding anything. "Walk me through the bathroom incident again," Torres said on day 3. "The chemical gas. Why didn't you just climb out the window?" "It was too small, and there were men in the alley below." "You're sure about that? About the men?" "I saw them, 2 of them, waiting." Torres made a note. "Security footage from the neighboring building shows the alley was empty." Chloe's stomach dropped. "What?" "Empty. No one there. Which means either you hallucinated them because of stress, or they moved before the cameras caught them, or you're lying about that detail to make the threat seem more severe." "I'm not lying. I saw them." "I believe you think you did." Torres closed her notebook. "But here's the problem, Ms. Bennett. Your testimony is crucial to this case. Defense attorneys are going to tear apart every inconsistency, every detail that doesn't match physical evidence, every moment where stress might have distorted your perception. So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying get your story straight. Not because I think you're dishonest, but because the truth needs to be airtight or the Sterlings walk." Chloe left that session feeling like she'd been hollowed out. Nathaniel was waiting in the hallway outside the FBI field office. "How bad?" he asked. "She thinks I imagined the men in the alley." "Did you?" "I don't know anymore." "Maybe. Everything was happening so fast. Chloe pressed her palms against her eyes. What if I mess this up? What if my testimony isn't good enough and they get off? Then we live with it. But that's not going to happen. Torres is tough because she's thorough. She's preparing you for what defense attorneys will throw at you on the stand. That's a good thing. Doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to. They drove back to the safe house in silence. Chloe had been living there for 2 weeks now, long enough that it was starting to feel less like a secure location and more like a very nice prison. Emma had been released from the medical facility and was staying in one of the guest rooms. Her treatments continuing with an in-home nurse Margaret had hired. She was getting stronger, color returning to her face, energy returning to her movements. That should have made Chloe happy, should have felt like victory. Instead, she just felt tired. Sarah found her that evening sitting on the back patio, watching the sun set over the valley. Torres called, Sarah said, settling into the chair beside her. Preliminary hearing is scheduled for next week. Richard and Beatrice both pleading not guilty. Their lawyers are already filing motions to suppress the surveillance evidence. Can they do that? They can try. Doesn't mean they'll succeed. Sarah paused. How are you holding up? Everyone keeps asking me that. Because everyone's worried about you. I'm fine. You're not. You barely sleep. You barely eat. You're wound so tight you're going to snap. Chloe didn't argue because Sarah was right. I keep waiting for something else to go wrong. For Victor to show up. For the Sterlings to make bail and come after us. For the whole case to fall apart. That's called trauma response. Your brain is stuck in survival mode because it hasn't accepted that the immediate danger is over. The danger isn't over. Not until they're convicted. Fair point. Sarah stretched out her legs. You know what helped me? After Marcus died. After I spent 18 months drowning in grief and rage and helplessness. What? Accepting that justice isn't the same thing as closure. I wanted them punished. Wanted them to suffer the way Marcus suffered. But even when they're convicted, even when they spend the rest of their lives in prison, it won't bring him back. Won't undo what happened. The pain doesn't just disappear because bad people face consequences. So what's the point? The point is you stop them from hurting anyone else. You make sure other families don't have to go through what we went through. That's not nothing, Chloe. That matters. Emma appeared in the doorway. Dinner's ready. Margaret made her lasagna thing. Inside, the dining room table was set for 5. Margaret, Emma, Sarah, Nathaniel, and Chloe. It felt strangely domestic, like a family, except none of them were actually related and half of them had met 3 weeks ago. I got my test results back, Emma announced halfway through dinner. The new treatment is working. Tumor markers are down 40%. The table erupted in congratulations. Margaret actually got teary. Nathaniel raised his wine glass in a toast. Chloe felt herself smile for the first time in days. That's amazing, Em. Yeah, it is. Emma's gaze met her sister's across the table. Thank you for all of this. I know what it cost. You're worth it. I know, but still. Thank you. After dinner, Nathaniel pulled Chloe aside. I need to show you something. He led her to his office, closed the door, pulled up a video file on his computer. This came in 2 hours ago. Surveillance footage from the Canadian border. Day Beatrice was arrested. The video showed Beatrice being taken into custody. Standard arrest. Nothing unusual. Okay, Chloe said. Watch the background. Nathaniel zoomed in on a figure standing near the customs building. Watching. The image was grainy, but the profile was familiar. That's Victor, Chloe said. That's Victor. He was there when Beatrice got arrested, which means he knew exactly where she'd be and when. He set her up. He set them all up. Richard's flight path, Beatrice's border crossing, even the accountant's location when federal agents picked him up. Victor fed us their movements. Chloe stared at the screen. Why? Because he's smarter than I gave him credit for. He didn't just give us evidence. He orchestrated the entire collapse of his own operation to eliminate competition and walk away clean. But we gave his files to the FBI. We gave them files about other people's corruption. Nothing in there directly implicates him in any crimes we can prosecute. He's a facilitator, a consultant. Legally, he just connected buyers and sellers, never pulled a trigger, never physically moved contraband, just made introductions. That can't be legal. It's not. but proving it in court is different than knowing it happened. Victor's been doing this for decades. He's very good at staying just this side of prosecutable. Chloe felt sick. So he wins. He survives. That's different than winning. Nathaniel closed the video. But yeah, unless he makes a mistake, he's probably going to disappear into whatever network he came from, and we'll never see him again. That's not justice. No, but it's reality. Sometimes bad people get away because the system has holes and they're smart enough to find them. I hate that. So do I. But we took down the Sterlings. We exposed massive corruption. We saved lives by shutting down their operation. That's not nothing. He was right. Chloe knew he was right, but it still felt incomplete, like finishing a puzzle and finding out one piece was missing. The preliminary hearing happened on a Tuesday morning. Chloe sat in the gallery with Sarah, watching Richard and Beatrice Sterling enter in expensive suits and practiced expressions of innocent outrage. Their lawyers were exactly what you'd expect, polished, aggressive, treating the whole proceeding like an inconvenience rather than a reckoning. Your Honor, this entire case is built on illegally obtained surveillance, one of them argued. My client had a reasonable expectation of privacy in his own home. The evidence should be suppressed entirely. Agent Torres countered with documentation proving Nathaniel had followed proper protocols, that the surveillance was legally justified given probable cause of ongoing criminal activity. The judge, a tired-looking woman named Hendricks, who seemed deeply unimpressed by everyone in her courtroom, took 3 hours to make her ruling. The surveillance evidence stands. Probable cause was established. This case proceeds to trial. Richard's lawyer immediately requested bail. My client is a respected businessman with deep ties to the community. He poses no flight risk. Your client was arrested trying to flee the country, Torres pointed out, on a private jet, with $2 million in cash and fake identification documents. He poses every flight risk. Judge Hendricks denied bail. Richard and Beatrice would remain in federal custody pending trial. As they were led out of the courtroom, Beatrice's eyes found Chloe in the gallery. The look she gave her was pure venom, pure promise that this wasn't over. Chloe met her stare and didn't look away. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Questions flew from every direction. Cameras flashed. Ms. Bennett, how does it feel knowing you brought down one of the city's most powerful families? Are you afraid of retaliation? What's next for you? Torres had prepped her for this. Keep it brief. Don't speculate. Don't give them anything they can twist. I'm grateful that justice is being served, Chloe said. And I hope this sends a message that no one is above the law. Sarah pulled her away before more questions could land. They climbed into the waiting SUV where Nathaniel sat reviewing documents. Trial's set for 8 weeks from now, he said. Federal prosecutor thinks they have enough to guarantee conviction on at least half the charges. Money laundering is airtight. The murder charge is trickier. Why? Because proving they ordered Marcus's death versus proving he died during their criminal operation are different legal standards. They're going to argue they had nothing to do with his death, that he actually did kill himself over guilt about discovering their crimes. That's bullshit, Sarah said. It's a defense strategy, and it might work. Nathaniel looked at Chloe. Which is why your testimony is critical. You can place them at the scene discussing his death. Your surveillance caught them admitting it. I know. The defense is going to destroy you on the stand. They're going to attack your credibility, your motives, every inconsistency in your story. Torres was gentle compared to what's coming. I can handle it. I know you can. I'm just making sure you know what you're walking into. The next 8 weeks were brutal. Chloe met with prosecutors for hours every day, going over her testimony, preparing for cross-examination, memorizing timelines and details until they were carved into her brain. Torres brought in a lawyer to play defense attorney during mock trials. The woman was vicious, tore apart every aspect of Chloe's story, questioned her motives, implied she was being paid to testify, suggested she'd fabricated evidence for money. You were a struggling waitress drowning in medical debt, the mock attorney said during one session. Then suddenly, Nathaniel Pierce appears offering money and opportunity. Isn't it convenient that your testimony aligns perfectly with what he needs to hear? I'm testifying to what I saw and heard, or what you were told to say you saw and heard, what you were paid very well to claim happened. No one paid me to lie, but you were paid, substantially. Your sister's medical bills, your rent, a college fund. That's over $200,000 in benefits. Quite a motivator to say whatever Mr. Pierce wanted you to say. Chloe wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to walk out and never come back. But she didn't. She sat there and took it, because this was preparation for the real thing. Emma watched one of these sessions and afterward found Chloe in the bathroom crying. "Hey," Emma said softly, "you okay? They're going to make me look like a liar, like I made everything up for money. Did you? No. Then the truth will hold up. I know it will. You don't know that. I know you. And you're a lot of things, Chloe, but a liar isn't one of them." Emma hugged her sister. "You're going to get on that stand and tell the truth, and the jury is going to believe you because you're believable. You're real. You're someone they can relate to. The Sterlings have the best lawyers money can buy. And you have something better. You have the truth." It sounded naive, like something from a movie where good always triumphed and justice always prevailed, but Chloe wanted to believe it anyway. The trial started on a Monday in October. The courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, people who'd followed the case and wanted to see the Sterling family finally face consequences. Chloe sat in the witness waiting room for 3 days before she was called. 3 days of listening to other testimonies through the speakers. 3 days of Torres building the case piece by piece. When her name was finally called, Chloe's legs felt like water. Sarah squeezed her hand. "You've got this." The courtroom was exactly as intimidating as she'd expected. Rows of people staring, the judge looking down from the bench. The jury, 12 strangers who would decide if everything she'd been through mattered. And Richard and Beatrice Sterling, sitting at the defense table like this was all a terrible misunderstanding rather than a reckoning. Torres led her through the testimony gently. The restaurant, the soup incident, Nathaniel's offer, the training, the infiltration. "And what did you observe at the Sterling penthouse?" Torres asked. "I observed Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, along with several associates, discussing their money laundering operation. They talked about offshore accounts, shipping manifests, and payments to corrupt officials." "Did they discuss Marcus Chen?" "Yes. They discussed how his death had been necessary to protect the operation, how it had been made to look like suicide." "Objection!" The defense attorney shot to his feet. "Hearsay! The witness is characterizing statements she allegedly overheard." "Your Honor, this is direct testimony about what the witness personally heard," Torres countered. "Overruled. The witness may answer." Chloe continued, walking through every detail, every conversation captured on the surveillance equipment she'd placed. Then it was the defense's turn. Richard Sterling's attorney, a silver-haired man named Carson, who looked like he'd been born in a suit, approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ms. Bennett, you've painted quite a picture today. Very detailed, very damning." He paused. "How much is Nathaniel Pierce paying you to say all this?" "Objection!" "I'll rephrase. Did Mr. Pierce pay your sister's medical bills?" "Yes." "Over $50,000 worth?" "I don't know the exact amount." "Did he reduce your rent to a fraction of market value?" "Yes." "Set up a college fund for your sister?" "Yes." "Employ you at a salary of $150,000 per year?" "Yes." Carson turned to the jury. "So we have a witness who received over $200,000 in benefits from the man who orchestrated this entire investigation, testifying to conversations she claims to have overheard while committing what amounts to corporate espionage." Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. Mr. Carson, ask questions or sit down. Carson smiled. "Ms. Bennett, isn't it true that you were fired from Billionaire restaurant for assaulting a customer?" "No, that's not what happened." "But you did spill hot soup on Beatrice Sterling." "She moved into my path deliberately." "Or you were careless and then Mr. Pierce fabricated video evidence to make it look intentional, thereby starting this entire chain of events to target the Sterling family." "That's insane. The video shows exactly what happened. The video shows what Mr. Pierce claims happened, but you can't prove it wasn't edited, can't prove it wasn't manufactured to justify what came after." Objection! The next 2 hours were brutal. Carson attacked every aspect of Chloe's testimony, questioned her motives, implied she was lying, suggested the whole thing was an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by Nathaniel out of misguided grief over Marcus Chen's death. By the time Torres got to redirect, Chloe felt like she'd been through a shredder. "Ms. Bennett," Torres said quietly. Did you fabricate any of your testimony? No. Did Nathaniel Pierce tell you what to say? No. Did you plant surveillance equipment in the Sterling penthouse? Yes. And did that equipment capture the defendants discussing criminal activity? Yes. All of it. Everything I testified to. Thank you. Nothing further. The judge dismissed her. Chloe walked out of the courtroom on shaking legs, barely making it to the hallway before her knees gave out. Nathaniel caught her. You did great. I felt like I was being torn apart. That's their job. But the jury saw you. They saw you tell the truth despite being attacked. That matters more than anything Carson said. The trial continued for 3 more weeks. Expert witnesses testified about the financial crimes. Federal agents explained the investigation. The Sterling's accountant, granted immunity in exchange for testimony, detailed exactly how the money laundering worked. Then came the surveillance recordings, audio and video of the Sterlings discussing their crimes in their own words. Chloe watched from the gallery as the jury listened to Richard Sterling's voice. Chen is dead. His files are destroyed. The whole thing is buried. Watched their faces as they heard Beatrice laugh about Marcus's death like it was an inconvenience rather than murder. The defense tried to argue the recordings were taken illegally, that they'd been edited, that they lacked proper context. But the jury had heard them, had seen the Sterlings' faces on video, had watched them celebrate crimes that had destroyed lives. Closing arguments happened on a Friday. Torres was methodical, walking the jury through every piece of evidence, every testimony, every connection between the Sterlings and the criminal enterprise they'd built. Carson's closing was passionate. He painted Nathaniel as a grief-stricken man who'd orchestrated an elaborate vendetta. Painted Chloe as a desperate woman who'd lied for money. Painted the whole case as a tragedy of misunderstanding and circumstantial evidence. The prosecution wants you to believe that Richard and Beatrice Sterling, pillars of this community, philanthropists, business leaders, are actually criminal masterminds running a vast illegal operation, Carson said. They want you to believe this based on the testimony of a waitress who had everything to gain from lying and surveillance recordings obtained through legally questionable means. Is that really enough to destroy 2 lives? To send 2 people to prison for decades based on such flimsy evidence? The jury deliberated for 4 days. 4 days of Chloe pacing the safe house, unable to eat, unable to sleep, unable to do anything but wait. On day 4, her phone rang. Torres. They have a verdict. The courtroom was even more packed than before. Chloe sat between Sarah and Emma, hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Richard and Beatrice stood as the jury foreman read the verdict. On the count of money laundering in the 1st degree, we find the defendant Richard Sterling guilty. Beatrice's face went white. On the count of conspiracy to commit murder, we find the defendant Richard Sterling guilty. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel, calling for order. Guilty on 18 of 20 counts for Richard. Guilty on 16 of 20 for Beatrice. Sentencing would happen in 6 weeks, but the mandatory minimums meant they were looking at 25 years minimum, possibly life. Outside the courthouse, Chloe faced the cameras again. How do you feel about the verdict? She thought about Marcus Chen, about the 18 months Sarah had spent grieving, about all the people the Sterlings had hurt over the years. I feel like justice was served, she said. Not perfectly, not completely, but served. That night, Sarah opened a bottle of champagne that had been sitting in Nathaniel's wine cellar, waiting for this moment. To Marcus, she said, raising her glass, who deserved better than he got, but who can finally rest knowing his killers faced consequences. They drank, celebrated, let themselves feel something other than tension for the first time in months. Later, Chloe found Nathaniel on the patio where she'd sat so many evenings watching the sunset. Thank you, she said. For what? For giving me a chance to matter. To do something that actually made a difference. You made the choice to walk into my building that morning. You made the choice to say yes. You made the choice to keep going even when it got dangerous. I just provided the opportunity. Still, thank you. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. So, Nathaniel said, about that job offer, the permanent one. Still interested? Chloe thought about going back to her old life, serving drinks, being invisible. Safe, but meaningless. Then she thought about the last 3 months, the fear, the danger, the absolute terror of almost dying multiple times, and the feeling of watching the jury deliver a guilty verdict, of knowing she'd helped stop people who would have kept hurting others indefinitely. Yeah, she said, I'm interested. Good, because I have another case. Different family, different crimes, same need for someone who can be invisible. When do we start? 2 months, after you and Emma get settled, after you've had time to process everything that happened. I don't need 2 months. Yes, you do. Trust me on this. You jump into another operation without processing the trauma from this one, you'll break. I need you functional, not burned out. He was probably right. Chloe was exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. Okay, 2 months. The sentencing hearing happened in early December. Richard got 32 years, Beatrice got 28. Both would be eligible for parole in their 70s at the earliest. Victor never surfaced. The FBI had an open warrant, but he had disappeared into whatever network of criminals operated beyond the reach of law enforcement. It bothered Chloe less than she'd expected. They'd stopped the people they could stop, saved the people they could save. The rest was beyond their control. Emma got stronger every day. Her tumor markers continued dropping. The doctors started using words like remission and long-term survival. She enrolled in community college for spring semester, planning to study nursing. I want to help people the way the nurses helped me, she explained. Want to make a difference. Chloe understood that better than anyone. On Christmas Eve, Nathaniel's son flew in from Europe with his grandmother. 6-year-old Daniel with his father's dark eyes and his mother's smile that Chloe recognized from photos around the house. Margaret made a feast. The safe house filled with people, Sarah, Emma, Torres, who'd become something like a friend. Marcus's parents who wanted to meet the people who'd avenged their son. It felt like family. Strange, assembled from broken pieces, but family nonetheless. Daniel climbed into Chloe's lap during dessert. Dad says you're a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who did what needed doing. That's what heroes are, the 6-year-old said with absolute certainty. Maybe he was right. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, Chloe stood at the window looking out at the snow that had started falling. Nathaniel appeared beside her with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I think I actually am. Good. Because in 2 months we have work to do. I know. And it's going to be dangerous, probably more dangerous than the Sterling case. I know that too. So why do it? Why risk your life again when you could do anything else? Chloe thought about that question, about the waitress she'd been 6 months ago. Invisible, powerless, drowning, about the person she'd become, someone who mattered, someone who made a difference. Because I spent my whole life being invisible, she said finally, being overlooked, being treated like I didn't matter. And then you showed me that invisibility could be a weapon instead of a weakness, that being underestimated was an advantage, that all the things people ignored about me, my ability to watch, to listen, to survive impossible situations, those things had value. And now I know what I'm capable of. No, I can do things I never thought possible. And yeah, it's terrifying and dangerous, and I might die doing this work. She looked at Nathaniel. But at least I'll die mattering. At least I'll die knowing I used my life for something bigger than just surviving. Nathaniel nodded slowly. That's a good answer. The right answer. He paused. My wife used to say that we're defined by what we're willing to fight for, not what we're willing to die for. Anyone can throw their life away, but what we're willing to fight for day after day, even when it's hard, even when it's scary. What did she fight for? Me. Our son. The belief that the world could be better if enough people refused to accept how bad it was. His voice was quiet. She died in a car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. But before that, she spent every day fighting to make things better. Foster care reform, criminal justice advocacy, all the unglamorous work that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. She sounds amazing. She was, and she'd have liked you. Would have appreciated someone willing to fight, even when the odds were terrible. They stood together watching the snow fall, 2 broken people who'd found purpose in seeking justice for the dead and protection for the living. Emma appeared in the doorway. It's late. You should both sleep. In a minute, Chloe said. But Emma came over, wrapped her arms around her sister. Thank you for everything, for risking your life, for saving mine, for being the best sister anyone could ask for. You'd have done the same. Maybe, but I didn't have to. You did it for me. Emma pulled back, eyes bright. I'm proud of you. I don't say that enough, but I'm so proud of who you've become. After Emma went back to bed, Chloe felt something inside her settle, some piece that had been broken finally clicking into place. She'd survived. Emma had survived. The bad people had faced consequences. It wasn't a perfect ending. Victor was still out there. The system still had holes. Justice was still incomplete and complicated and messy. But it was enough. In 2 months, there would be another case, another family of criminals who thought they were untouchable. Another chance to be the invisible woman who brought them down. Chloe was ready. Not because she was fearless. She was still terrified, still had nightmares about the bathroom full of chlorine gas, still sometimes woke up expecting to find Sterling security breaking down her door. But being afraid didn't mean being helpless. It meant being human, being real, being someone who understood what was at stake and chose to fight anyway. Sarah found her the next morning sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and a file folder. Starting research already? Sarah asked. Just reading, getting familiar with the next case. It's Christmas. You're allowed to take a day off. I will. After I finish this. Sarah poured her own coffee, sat down across from Chloe. You know what Marcus used to say? That the people who change the world aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who feel it and do the work anyway. Is that what we're doing? Changing the world? One case at a time. One family of criminals taken down. One group of victims who get justice. Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're doing. The file was about a pharmaceutical company, executives who'd knowingly sold contaminated medication. People had died. The executives had covered it up, paid off regulators, buried the evidence. It was going to be complicated, dangerous, probably impossible. Chloe read every page, made notes, started planning, because she'd learned something over the past 6 months, something important that she'd carry forward into whatever came next. The world was full of powerful people who hurt others and thought they'd never face consequences, who believed their money, their connections, their carefully constructed walls of privilege would protect them forever. But those walls had cracks. And sometimes the people they'd never notice, the waitresses, the invisible ones, the women they dismissed as irrelevant, could slip through those cracks and bring the whole structure down. Chloe Bennett had been invisible her entire life. Now she was learning to make that invisibility count. And the people who'd never seen her coming would never see her coming until it was far too late. That was justice. Imperfect, incomplete, human, but real. And that was enough. Outside, the snow continued falling, covering everything in white. A blank slate, a new beginning. Chloe closed the file, finished her coffee, and went to find her sister. Because before the next case, before the next fight, before walking back into danger, she needed to remember what she was fighting for. Not revenge, not glory, not even justice in its purest form, but the chance for people like Emma, good people who'd been hurt by those who'd never faced consequences, to have futures, to have hope, to live lives that weren't defined by the cruelty of those with power. That was worth fighting for. That was worth everything. And Chloe Bennett, former waitress, current intelligence operative, professional invisible woman, was ready for whatever came next, because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. You don't have to be fearless to be brave. You don't have to be perfect to make a difference. You just have to show up, do the work, and refuse to quit, even when everything inside you is screaming to run. That was heroism. Not the kind in movies, the kind that happened in small moments, in difficult choices, in the decision to keep fighting even when the outcome was uncertain. Emma found her staring out the window again. You okay? Yeah, I really am. Good, because Margaret's making pancakes, and if we don't get downstairs soon, Daniel's going to eat them all. They went downstairs together, joined the strange assembled family that had formed from trauma and purpose, and the shared understanding that sometimes the only way to heal was to help others. Nathaniel was teaching Daniel how to flip pancakes. Sarah was arguing with Torres about the best coffee. Margaret was orchestrating the chaos with practiced ease. Chloe sat at the table, accepted the pancakes Emma passed her, and let herself be present in this moment. No fear, no planning, no thinking about what came next. Just this, just now, just the warmth of people who'd become family, and the knowledge that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. That was the real victory. Not the verdict, not the convictions, but this. The life she'd built from the ruins of the one she'd lost. The purpose she'd found in the work. The understanding that she mattered not in spite of being invisible, but because of it. And when the time came, in 2 months or 2 years or however long it took, she'd be ready to be invisible again, to slip through the cracks, to bring down the powerful who thought they'd never fall. One case at a time, one battle at a time, one victory for people who'd never had a voice. That was enough. That was everything. And Chloe Bennett was finally ready to live the life she'd fought so hard to build.